And welcome to the future, otherwise known as episode 50 Spectacular
Oh my God, Russ. 50 spectacular
of Tomorrow's World Audit Time.
Those words.
The famed half-century mark. We're entering Sniper's Alley now, as they say. Once you reach 50, that's what they say. Have you heard that? Have you heard that expression?
I've never heard that.
Apparently, if you reach 50 as a human being, the next 10 years are known to doctors as Sniper's Alley, because it's when you're most likely to suddenly die of something like a heart attack.
Oh, that's
But if you make it through
Russell.
there, then you're probably going to live a long and rich
that is quite nice.
older life. So,
Yeah.
Mark, so all we need to do, Mark, get through this episode, which I think we just about do, and then another 10, and then we'll be able to go on forever and audit all 1,900 however many, whatever it is that we need to audit.
Well, that's what a relief. Luckily, I mean, we've looked at the demographics of our listenership. They're all in their early 20s, so they all have decades to go as well. That's brilliant. And at our current rate, we should get to episode 60 and sometime in 2027. So that's great, brilliant.
Yes, yeah, and I have to say, talk about one for the teenagers. This episode is an absolute. They'll be putting down their TikToks and their Snapchats and absolutely knuckling down to this.
To this, they'll be leaving the box social early to rush to watch and listen to this.
This absolute thriller-minute episode from 1965 that we've got here. It's 50th episode, Mark. Very special episode, isn't it? So
It's a very special episode. It is a very special episode. Russ. They said it couldn't happen,
But before we get on to that,
and we laughed in their face and agreed.
But before we get onto that, Mark.
Sorry, Russell.
Before we get onto that, a little bit more housekeeping. A little bit of housekeeping. 50th episode housekeeping.
We're not expecting a fire drill.
In the last episode, Mark, you might remember the Hollywood special.
Yeah, the Godzilla special.
The Godzilla special. We were I think I was researching that at some point at the end of February, I think. Beginning of March.
Yeah.
We recorded it, I think. Somehow, unbeknownst to me, while I was researching this episode, Technicolor, I would say probably the form of the most research that I did of the episode, were in the process of going bust.
Yeah.
The curse of Tomorrow's World Audit Time strikes again, Mark.
Strikes again. Yeah, absolutely. I was both shocked and unsurprised when you sent me that message saying Technicolor's gone bust.
Yeah. I found this Deadline article from March the 4th, and I just enjoyed the first paragraph, which goes like this. "We're back" was the upbeat message delivered by Technicolor CEO Caroline Parrott to thousands of global employees during an online town hall at the end of January. 6 weeks later, the iconic film company is in ruins, and thousands are out of their jobs after one of the swiftest and most painful corporate implosions in recent years. In the space of just a few days in late February, the company cratered in the US, UK, India and Canada, while operations in France continue amid a receivership process. One executive from a rival VFX firm described the scale and suddenness of the damage as a holy shit moment for everyone.
Wow.
So, I mean,
That's incredible.
It does seem like the results of a curse, doesn't it, Mark? That's not a normal bankruptcy. There's no other explanation, I think, that kind of explains this away, really. No, that's incredible. A holy shit moment. Is that what you said? Yes, yeah.
That's incredible.
And interestingly, one of the last films that they've been working on was the Snow White film that recently came out, Mark. So,
wow.
So
another highly successful.
I was going to say, maybe some of the curse leaked out of their, it worked into what they were producing as well. So that's interesting, Mark. Also, we the previous episode before that, when we were coming from Norway, we were looking at a mysterious bicycle wheel.
We were. That we kind of basically convinced ourselves we kind of maybe understood what exactly he was trying to do.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Graham Rayburn, looked into it. Obviously, cycling expert. He reckons it's a load of old cobblers. He sort of kind of agreed because we were a bit dubious about.
We were a bit dubious, yeah.
He also agreed that it didn't seem to work. It wouldn't possibly work how he suggested it would work, and also pointed me in the direction of a number of other similar wheels that have been made over the years that have also been disproven. He even actually sent me a photograph from the Dusseldorf cycling show that he happened to be at the time, where
wow.
there was some sort of exhibit there which looked weirdly similar to the Norwegian one, and so was presumably also a load of old cobblers. So it's a perennial thing in cycling. They're never real. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much to our agent there, our secret undercover agent, who you named. I was going to call him Deep Thread.
And thirdly, going back also from response to the last episode, the Hollywood one, on our YouTube, we get some really nice YouTube comments, actually, from people who seem to be
a lot of fun, actually.
Seem to be a lot of very sort of knowledgeable people who are able to...
Yeah, it's bizarre they still engage with our podcast because they actually have knowledge.
Yeah, you'd think they'd sit there going, God, this is all wrong.
Yeah. This is
really under-researched. But somebody
surely once you learn we don't know something about your area of expertise, you have to question our expertise on every other area, no?
Yes, yeah. But anyway, a commenter called Erwin Pommel...
Great name.
...set us right on why motion... Because we were wondering, why would motion capture be involved in brain surgery?
Yes.
And he set us right on why that would be the case. He said, the connection with surgery is turning gross motion into fine motion. The surgeon can work at a scale much larger than the scale they're actually operating on, using a magnified screen and a robotic control glove. Rather than requiring the surgeon to make a 0.1 millimetre movement, they can make a 1 millimetre or even 1 centimetre movement. So yes, it's about scaling down.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So presumably you blow the brain up to giant size, and then you can, and then it can track your movements, and yeah, makes complete sense. Thank you for that, Erwin.
The second I read that, I was like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why didn't they explain that on the show? That would have been interesting.
Yes, yeah, and I like the idea that perhaps the surgeon is somehow still, even in the surgery situation, he's represented by a fluffy rabbit and.
Coquettishly dancing around the surgery.
Yeah. In a gown and mask. Anyway, a little bit of housekeeping there, Mark. But on to the episode in question. Obviously, 50th episode, very special. What can we do? Well, as it happens, I was looking on the bbc.co.uk website, and it turns out that their archive people, very kindly have uploaded what they say is the first ever episode of Tomorrow's World from the 7th of July 1965, and it's there. Anybody in the UK or anybody outside the UK with a VPN can actually watch it themselves, which is quite unusual. I think I don't think necessarily we always cover ones that people can just find that easily. No. But that is good for us because it's quite a strange episode, Mark, isn't it? I don't think we're going to be able to show the segments in full during our podcast, are we?
No, and not because there's a problem with the technology. It's because we're doing you a favor, listener / viewer.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It's a 30-minute show, and the first segment is 19 minutes long or something like that.
Did I do the maths? I can't remember. I think I did the maths. Yeah, it's basically that's part of 20 minutes, and it is so long. It is so painfully long that as our birthday treat to you.
Yeah, but I obviously I have had people complain to me in the past that I don't include the full segments,
which is mad.
Which
absolutely mad. Do you know how much we try and save you? We make these episodes as short as we possibly can.
Yes. But in this case, I will shorten. At least certainly the first segment. Anyway, the subsequent.
The other ones are fine.
Are probably
It's that first one.
Yeah.
We're really hyping up the first part of this episode, aren't we?
But keep that in mind. If you want to see the full segment or the full episode all intact, then you can. If you just type in Tomorrow's World first edition into Google, it's the first result. Now, the thing is, Mark, I do have to raise a little bit of a question here, Mark.
Yeah.
In that I don't think it is the first episode of Tomorrow's World.
No, and having watched it, I kind of agree with you. Yeah,
because
it feels like we're about to enter a really controversial subject here, right?
the BBC very clearly state on their website this description underneath the episode. It says this inaugural edition of Tomorrow's World includes 3 very different features. Derek Cooper, with help from consultant physicians Charles Fletcher, investigates new advantages in kidney dialysis machines. A second report looks at the Dutch flood descent system. And Professor Philip Morris discusses the likelihood of the Mariner 4 space probe discovering evidence of life on Mars. So that is the episode that we're going to see. Spoiler alert, that is what we're going to watch. And it does say inaugural episode there. So you think, that's fair enough. Yeah. However, if you look on the BBC Genome, which takes all of its information from historical copies of the Radio Times, and look at the entry for the 7th of July 1965, which is the first episode of Tomorrow's World, the Radio Times says, Lisa Bronstrom, who was a 44 and Swedish, recently underwent a critical brain operation for the relief of a disease which played havoc with her social and emotional life since the age of 19. Well, that's definitely not in this episode, is it? That's a completely different one altogether. And that's there's quite a long explanation of the program. It goes on. It says the story of Lisa's operation is told in Tomorrow's World, and her case highlights in many ways the significance of this new series of 6 weekly programs. And blah 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 blah. And that is written by Glyn Jones, the series creator.
Oh,
if you look,
he'd know.
If you then skip forward a week to the 14th of July,
yes,
it has exactly the same description as the episode that we're watching now, and it does include the word inaugural. So my suggestion is that whoever wrote the Radio Times accidentally wrote inaugural on the second episode, and then whoever works at the archive has seen that word inaugural and then just assumed that this episode is the first episode and not checked the dates. And also, possibly because the first episode doesn't exist, as far as I'm aware, they've just gone, well, we could just say this is the first episode. What do you reckon?
Oh my God, the whole House of Cards is collapsing around us. I'm currently, dear point of view. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. I'm going to posit another thing, which is it's distinctly possible we're the only people who give a flying F about this. So, so of course, you put 2 and 2 together and go 4. The idea that the first episode is lost media does not shock me whatsoever. I know when we've been rummaging around Michael Rod's basement, you struggle to find anything, I don't know, up until like the mid-70s, really. Yeah. And it's because the BBC didn't keep stuff. We all know that. We all know about these amazing stories where somebody looks at the back of a skip outside a kind of a Nigerian broadcasting headquarters and they find 4 episodes of Doctor Who and every episode of some Z-Car series that no one's ever been able to track down. But the idea that they would think or try and pretend it's the inaugural, that doesn't feel right to me. But the fact that they might have just assumed, not unreasonably, they probably did the same thing we do, which is look up the genome and go like, well, that must be fact then. Yeah. It's you know what? It's all part of the fun of Tomorrow's World all the time. That here we were primed to do the first episode for our 50. We've been talking about this for months, Russ. It's been in the preps for months, and then we discover BBC lies is all I can say.
Yeah. Second BBC lie of that same page, the page that has this episode on it.
Yep.
It claims that the theme, because this episode, as you will notice, that this episode has a different theme tune, and it claims that the theme tune for the first 6 episodes was by someone called Marius Constant.
Well, I know that's not true.
Well, Marius Constant was the man who did his most famous work was the theme tune to The Twilight Zone. But if you Shazam this music, it's clearly by Johnny Dankworth, the man who did the famous Tomorrow's World music that succeeds it. And both the opening and end titles have different music, but they are both by John Dankworth, and they're from
same album.
They're from the same album, the Zodiac Variations.
Yeah, same album. Yeah.
So that seems pretty clear cut as well. So I don't know where they got the idea that it's by somebody called Marius Constant before.
I'd love to hear whatever it is they think they heard, but I mean, it's very. I mean, and the thing is, I said in the notes, is like, I mean, the idea that Dankworth came up with the theme tune is clearly because Glyn or somebody in the team was just a fan of his work, and I quite like that. Yeah. Or they went to the same school or whatever, however the BBC was run at the time. Who you knew, right? It's like, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, apparently Glyn paid Dankworth 25 quid to come up with the Tomorrow's World theme for the next series. So we start off with a load of BBC lies, Mark. So that's nice. And the only other interesting thing about this episode, I thought, was that it's sandwiched between a Welsh sitcom called Lil the Sultan and I've never heard of that,
and the final of Miss Interflora GPO 1965. The prizes of which were handed out by Tony Benn. I wouldn't expect him to be into beauty competitions, would you? I don't know. I don't think your lefties like that sort of thing. Maybe in
I don't know, but
65, maybe it was
that generation. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, they're all up to their neck in filth. That's probably why he wore that cravat, right, to hide that neck filth. That's a shame. Actually, I was more focusing on the fact that they were just allowed to call it the Interflora. On BBC. Yeah. It's a shame he didn't share those with us, because I would have watched them both.
Do you reckon Interflora was probably nationalised at the time, though, wasn't it? It wasn't everything nationalised.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Now I'm just picturing...
Which shade of grey do you want in your flowers?
I'm now just picturing Tony Benn, legendary pipe smoker, wasn't he? I'm just picturing him when he sees one of the ladies he likes coming down the catwalk, his little pipe just going. Yes. Anyway, I don't think we need to talk much more about this. We might as well get into the episode, Mark, because we've got a right old slog to get through on this very special 50th episode.
Spectacular 50th episode.
Tonight, 3 widely different stories. The first, medical, the case of this woman, Mrs. Olga Heppel, and the way she is keeping herself alive. The second, still in Britain, is about the way we could solve a serious future problem, the shortage of water. And the third comes from deep space and concerns the search for life on other worlds. First, though, Mrs. Olga Heppel. Now, one of the most remarkable developments in medicine during the last few years has been the increasing ability to keep people alive, as it were, artificially. And one of the most remarkable of the machines used is the artificial kidney. But no sooner had the medical problem of keeping these patients alive been solved than other problems appeared. There just weren't enough machines available, and those who could not get treatment on one died. This, of course, faced doctors with some terrible dilemmas. The doctors of Seattle in the United States, for instance, said that they were not the people to decide who should live or who should die. So a committee of 7 people was set up. They literally hold the power of life and death over those who appear before them. For instance, in 1 month, they accepted 10 patients for treatment, and they rejected 7. At the end of a year, the chosen few were alive, the 7 rejects were dead. In Britain, there is no committee like the Seattle one yet, but the problems facing doctors and patients in this country are still serious. We sent a film team to find out the position in Britain today.
18 months ago, I was dying, and life seemed pretty hopeless. There wasn't any future for me. I was feeling very ill. I had heart failure, convulsions, hallucinations. I didn't see very much in store at all.
But today, this woman, Olga Heppel, has a future. She is a housewife living with her husband in Harlow New Town, Essex. This 35-year-old woman is not even an invalid, though her own kidneys stopped working 18 months ago. When they failed, she became seriously ill. Death seemed inevitable for this woman who had led a healthy, normal life. Today, she is still able to lead the life of a busy housewife, because she is kept alive by this: an artificial kidney machine installed in the lounge of her home 8 months ago. It was the first machine to be put into a private home in this country. There are only 4 other artificial kidneys installed in homes in Britain. Their function is simple. They keep their owners alive. But every year, over 1,000 people in this country die who don't have machines like this one, or access to the small number of artificial kidneys installed in our hospitals.
I wasn't ready to die. I felt that I had a lot more to do and say in life, and wanted some more time.
A kidney machine is a substitute for the human kidneys, which are one of the most complicated organs of the body. They have a vital role cleansing the blood of impurities and unwanted liquids. A great deal can go wrong with these complex organs, and when it does, death is often inevitable unless a patient is lucky enough to be brought to a unit like this, set up to combat irreversible kidney failure. This is the renal unit of the Royal Free Hospital, Hampstead. Its director is Dr. Stanley Sheldon.
Today, in my opinion, chronic dialysis offers the most useful form of long-term survival for the majority of kidney patients suffering from kidney failure. Dialysis means the use of an artificial kidney to purify the blood by a process of filtration when the patient's kidneys have irreversibly failed. Our problem today is not a medical one or a technical one. This form of treatment has been in use successfully now for over 5 years. It really is an economic one. We've got to consider how this form of treatment can best be made available to the people who require it today in this country. Now, in a unit of this size, treating about 5 patients a night, 15 patients a week, it costs approximately £2,000 a year for each one patient to be maintained in a reasonable state of health. And this is a very large sum of money to spend on any one individual, particularly when you consider that there are probably over 1,000 people a year in the British Isles each year who would require this form of treatment. For this reason, we have tried to develop newer ways of doing this which are safe but economic, so that we can bring down the cost of treatment. We've taught the patients how to run their own systems to cut down on nursing staff. We've introduced automatic monitoring devices to replace nursing staff. All these have worked extremely well, and to our amazement, they've actually improved the standard of treatment, the patients having more confidence in the machines and less dependence upon changing human beings. And the final climax of this type of work was to actually put the treatment into the patient's own home after a suitable period of training with a relative who was dedicated, and to let them try for themselves.
That's what Olga Heppel and her husband Ron did 8 months ago.
The home kidney machine means complete independence for me, apart from a periodic hospital check. It means I can fit it into part of my daily and weekly life. We don't let the kidney machine run our lives, but it is part of our lives, part of our daily lives, part of our home now, part of our existence. My friends and neighbours accept it as part of me.
But many patients, like Richard Bazant, are strongly opposed to having an artificial kidney installed at home.
I rejected it because I have recently got married, and my wife and I feel that the abnormalities of a life such as being dialyzed twice a week in order to stay alive are minimized by receiving this treatment in hospital. We feel that the home is the home and the hospital is the hospital, and that the time involved in fixing all the apparatus and paraphernalia for a dialysis twice a week would consume far too much of our time.
But whether at home or in hospital, the kidney has to be cleaned and rebuilt after each treatment, ready for the next.
Let's pretend, Mark. Let's pretend that I don't. We have no doubts about whether this is the first, second, or first episode or whatever it is.
Yes.
Let's just assume that the BBC are correct,
Yes.
and this is the first episode
Yes.
ever of Tomorrow's World.
Yes.
And this is therefore the first
Yes!
segment. The first segment.
Oh, it's so exciting. I can't wait. Oh, here's your receipt.
Oh, it's a medical segment.
We love those, Russ.
It has loads and loads of chatting in it.
We love talking heads.
It doesn't really tell us very much about actually how the thing works.
But what little it tells us over and over and over again, Russ.
Actually, that's a repeated thing of this episode, is that it's not very what we would call proper Tomorrow's World, is it? It's mainly
No, not yet.
It's mainly discussion, not even discussion shows. Mainly just people talking down the barrel of the lens. That's what the most of the program is.
Let's get to the grammar of the segment later, because we do need to discuss that very, very seriously and in depth. But yeah, it is because I was thinking, because obviously we've done early Tomorrow's Worlds before, but they absolutely felt like Tomorrow's World.
Yeah,
like the laser eye surgery one. It was definitely made to entertain and inform.
Yeah.
This is not made to entertain at all. If Lord Reith wasn't dead, he'd be spinning in his grave. Was it Lord Reith that came up with educate, inform,
yes,
and whatever?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, this is so dry.
Yeah.
It takes itself so seriously, this episode. I think they think this is really important.
Yes.
It feels more like news and current affairs than it does kind of science and education.
I mean, kidney dialysis is very important for
hugely
people
important.
without any kidneys or kidney failure.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Russ.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, this is an important step. This is the first ever kidney dialysis machines that can be used in the home as opposed to having to go to hospital, which must be very freeing for the people that want to do it. It's quite interesting that we meet somebody who doesn't want to do it.
Yes.
Basically just doesn't want his living room being clogged up with a dialysis machine.
Him and his wife, they just no. The home is the home, right? Englishman's Castle is his home, not a hospital. How dare they even suggest I put one in my home?
Yeah.
Incredible gentleman.
Yeah. So we start off with Olga Heppel. She's like she's housewife Olga Heppel.
Housewife, yeah. I initially, when I first saw this, I was immediately writing down casual sexism. They actually treat her job as a housewife as being a legitimate job. It's actually quite respectful of the fact that, no, she's a housewife. She has things she needs to be doing.
Yeah.
And she's equally as eligible for this dialysis machine as anyone else, which I quite liked.
Yeah.
It wasn't patronising her.
Yeah, a bit more on that later, Mark. Then we've introduced to the doctor, Stanley Sheldon, who is it makes me. I think he looks slightly like Roy Kinnear with hair.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah,
he's our first down the barrel of the lens expert, telling us all about this whole thing. Then we meet a slightly posher man. He's the one who doesn't want, called Richard. He's the one who doesn't want the dialysis machine in his house. Then we meet a salt of the earth working class man who works for the Southern Electric Board. I can't remember what he chats about. My eyes have started to glaze over.
He has a car. Yeah, no, he talks about he has to keep a car going. He says he can't afford the idea of buying a dialysis machine, which is never actually discussed or mentioned in the show. Apropos of nothing, he just says it's like I don't think anyone expects you to be able to afford it, but yeah,
yeah.
He's a salt of the earth type, isn't he? So nicely rounded segment.
Yeah.
It's a 4-quadrant segment.
And then in between this, we're given footage of the people using the dialysis machines. I think it's quite interesting. It's quite noticeable that quite often they're operating them themselves. Even Richard, who's in the hospital, appears to be operating the dialysis machine himself because he's got a syringe in his hand. So that seemed to be like was that like a standard? Would they just taught them how to use it and go on away you go? I mean, I suppose considering they have to do this quite so regularly, I guess it's probably easy enough to teach them how to do it.
I assume so. We can talk about teaching in a minute because whatever he's injecting, I'm sure is I don't know what he's injecting. It's never. He really could be a heroin addict. We simply don't know, and it does seem quite chill. But the level of technical knowledge that these patients are required to possess to do the dialysis machine is quite impressive. Or it's because I suppose the price of getting it wrong is huge.
Yes.
But because we see Mrs. Heppel do it at home, we also see kind of like a student doctor is in bed doing the early part where like he's basically sticking pipes into his leg.
Yes.
It's like it's like and it's so matter of fact. It's quite impressive actually. It's intriguing, isn't it? Because the one thing I do want to talk about is the fact that this segment starts in one place, which is the idea of, well, they don't call it a dialysis machine, they call it an artificial kidney. Yeah, is now available to go into somebody's house. Mrs. Heppel is the first person, and then quite quickly it actually becomes, well, actually even at the beginning, the way it's introduced, it's more about the morality and the philosophy of, or the paradox of socialized medicine, and the justification or lack of justification for spending money on the high ticket items, because it's even kind of it's introduced in the context of, in America, in Seattle, they've basically created one of Sarah Palin's death panels to decide who does and doesn't get the treatment. And the back half of this segment is about the kind of the practical elements of what this actually means. But then it becomes like a number crunching exercise where it's not explained, that they're kind of addressed in a very unusual and peculiar way. There was even a bit that you highlighted where, in the next bit we'll talk about, which is when we get one of our talking heads in the studio, the doctor almost seems to basically say, like, the more these medical things are successful, the more we're going to have to pay. Yeah. It's such a weird thing. This segment is so, you think it's going to be about the genius, the brilliance of this dialysis machine, and the fact that we now live in a world where having failed kidneys does not mean you're going to die in a week's time. Because I think doesn't somebody, is it Richard who says, like, at one point, like, oh no, is it Olga Heppel herself? It says, like, she went from a place of thinking like she had like a month left to live to she has decades.
Yes, yeah.
But they dropped that so quick to talk about, like, basically it then becomes, BBC Politics Today or something like that. I don't know, it's absolutely fascinating. Sorry, that was, and this is so long. We really do actually have a lot to talk about. But it's so boring that I suspect the points we want to make will just plop into our heads randomly.
Yes, yeah.
Does that make sense? I hope so, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with Olga Heppel, shall we?
Yeah, please.
I'm sure Olga Heppel is a housewife, or was an excellent housewife, but they do miss the salient fact that one of the reasons why she was chosen for this,
I was wondering this, go on, yeah,
was that she was also a qualified nurse. So she knew how to do this kind of stuff. So they could trust her with self-administering these things. She did seem very confident. The second and far more insane thing that they've not mentioned in this piece is that her dialysis machine was designed and built by her husband. No. Yes.
That is shocking.
Her husband, Ron Heppel, was a aerospace engineer, I think it said. Yes, he's a mechanic in an aeroplane instrument factory. And obviously, when his wife got this kidney failure, he worked with a doctor, because the doctor goes, she's going to need a dialysis machine. We should get one for the home. He worked with a doctor to design and build himself from scratch a home dialysis machine for his wife. And it cost him £360 to do. And you think, that's an amazing, what an amazing thing. What a really lovely thing to do for you. Save your wife's life like that.
Yeah.
And like they have to have the sort of the wherewithal and the expertise to build this thing. Yeah. we never see Rod. So romantic. He never speaks about it.
No, you see him he's standing behind the dialysis
oh yes, you do.
in the background. Yeah. When my wife does listen to this, I do want to say that I absolutely will do the same thing, but it won't work. So I hope she appreciates the sentiment of me making her a dialysis.
Yeah. You just
how many kettles does it need?
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine a Russell Hobbs dialysis machine. That'd be a thing of beauty, wouldn't it? I was amazed when I saw this.
Oh my God, that's incredible. That's incredible.
There was this, because I found this...
That's the story.
At the bottom of our doc, there's this photograph of a very cheerful Olga Heppel and her husband Ron there. And there was a sort of a bit of text on... This is for sale on eBay for $19.99 if you want to, from Historic Images, if you want to buy it. If you want a picture of Olga.
Do I?
And her husband. And there was like a printed... little piece on the back of it from dated from 1965 explaining exactly all of this stuff. So they miss all of that out. So then I found on ukkidneyhistory.org, which is obviously an absolutely thrilling website. I suggest you all go to it.
You bookmarked it for future episodes, I assume, in your own personal reading, of course.
Yes, yeah. There's just a little bit more explanation of how it was made. It said, the only way to make capacity to treat her was for her to learn how to dialyse herself at home, initially for 15 hours twice weekly. The dialysis machine for this bold experiment was made by her husband by drilling polypropylene blocks. The pressure alarms on the circuit were a first. These and some switches were fitted into a metal box purchased from Radio Spares on Tottenham Court Road. The large tank for mixing the dialysate, which I think is the fluid that they use, was made at a local brewery, and all was set up in the living room. And actually, I've just remembered, I found this Pathé newsreel about her, which I think is infinitely more entertaining than this Tomorrow's World piece.
Oh, right. It couldn't struggle not to be, right?
Covers absolutely everything in about 2 minutes. Hang on.
Oh, well, let's watch this then.
There's nothing outwardly remarkable about this house in Harlow, and inside, Olga Heppel goes about her daily life like any other housewife. Yet this time last year, they told her that she had only hours to live. Perhaps the family pets wondered why she interrupts meal preparation at this stage. She has an appointment with life. The front room has been turned into her own private hospital. A machine made by her husband to hospital specification cleanses her blood. For Olga Heppel has an organic complaint which prevents her kidneys from performing that function. As she used to be a nurse, she understands what's going on and, in fact, helps. No longer need she go to the hospital for this bi-weekly treatment. Ron Heppel, a machine tool operator, saw the machine they have there and decided to make one himself. Olga's blood flows through it, is filtered, and returns. And she herself is on the phone to the hospital reporting progress. In all medical history, there has never been anything like this. Factory built, the intricate machine would have cost probably more than £1,000. So Ron made one himself in 2 months of spare time. In a saline solution, the drug heparin is injected into the machine to prevent the blood clotting as it passes through. As the treatment occupies several hours, there's time for food. And how she goes for that sort. Normally, she's not allowed any. But while the machine is operating, it's quite safe. No wonder Olga says she has a marvelous husband. No more dragging herself to the hospital twice a week. She goes shopping like any other woman. There aren't many people in Harlow, a new town in Essex, who know that, but for husbandly devotion and science, Olga Heppel could never enjoy practically a normal life. But she is completely aware of it herself. There's been a modern miracle in Harlow.
That is an incredible story.
I'm going to say,
That is genuinely an incredible story.
in terms of interest and getting the salient facts to us and everything, it's 1-0 to Pathé, I think. There, like,
Bloody hell! I mean, I wanted to know more. The fact that like there is love at the heart of it as well is just what a perfect, and that dropped into Raymond's lap and they whipped it hard. My God, that's incredible. That makes me so angry about the segment in a way that I already was anyway. Unbelievable. I'm glad that we lost the first episode, Russ. That'll teach him.
yeah, maybe it's just a case that at the time they considered something like human interest just too
interesting,
too light, too
probably
too fluffy, too not rigorous
though.
enough. I don't know.
But the fact to have the confidence to make a dialysis machine for your wife and for it to work, I mean, that's mind blowing.
It looked really good, didn't it? It looked like a proper
looks
beta kit.
Super pro.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no different to the stuff we see in the hospitals.
No.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That's Olga, and then obviously we've got Dr. Stanley Sheldon, the main expert in this particular section. Do you know how old do you reckon Dr. Stanley Sheldon is in this episode?
This is one of these.
How does he
things,
look?
He's either 30 or he's 60. I mean, I have to go with he's 60, but I assume he's 30, right?
He's 34.
Oh my God, that's unreal. What was wrong with those people? He looks so old. I mean, If you'd not asked me the question, so therefore I knew there was obviously he was in his 30s, I would have assumed he was in his 50s or 60s.
Yeah. I mean, he's got dark hair. That's the only suggestion of youth.
Oh, he could be dying with boot polish there, Russ.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, born 1931.
He's 10 years younger than us.
Yes. Yeah.
And he looks like he's 15, 20 older. Not that we are like, when people are going to confuse us with high school kids or anything, but like, we don't look that old or bad. Oh my God.
So because he was so young, he actually only died in 2013, so, fairly recently. But he was an absolute legend in the world of kidneys. He did. So the reason why everyone could have these repeated and regular dialysis sessions was because he invented a new type of catheter, which they at the time called the Sheldon catheter, which could be left in your vein for like prolonged periods, and then just reconnected. So that was a real good innovation, because the standard practice of dialysis is 3 times a week. So obviously they had to keep plugging it into themselves quite a lot. Yeah, and he established the National Kidney Centre in 1966. And he was one of the founders of the European Renal Association, and spread all of his knowledge all around Europe. But I think the best thing about Dr. Stanley Sheldon is the fact that Olga, being a sort of thorough type, would transcribe her phone calls with the hospital to make sure she got everything, all the info down. And there's one time where she's having a phone call with somebody called Dr. Baylod, and Dr. Stanley is shouting to Dr. Baylod in the background and doesn't realise that Olga can hear what he's saying. And I think it really gives you quite an interesting impression of the type of man that Stanley Sheldon was.
Okay. Brilliant.
So I know Stanley wasn't northern in that, but I'm going to do it in a northern accent just so you can tell the difference.
Okay.
So you can tell the difference between between Stanley and Dr. Baylod. So yeah, right.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell her to keep off that bloody leg, or she'll fucking well lose that shunt. Stanley says you're to rest more. Tell her if that bloody husband of hers doesn't get his finger out and make that other dialyzer, he'll have a dead wife on his hands. Stanley says, when will the new kidney be ready? Tell her that if she doesn't watch her bloody potassium, she'll be dead of a coronary in a week. Stanley says, are you sticking to your diet? Tell her that if she doesn't pissing well check that water softener properly, I'll stop home dialysis. Stanley says the calcium in the last sample was a little high. Tell her if she gets any more infections in that bloody shunt, she could go back to Kerr in Newcastle. Now, Kerr was her other doctor. Stanley says, are you washing your hands properly? Tell her to pissing well drive with one hand. Both Sterling Moss and I can do it. He says, take care when you're in the car. Tell her if there are any more bloody cock-ups in the bath sodium, I'll inform every daily national newspaper in the country that her bloody husband is trying to kill her. Stanley says, be careful how you add the concentrate. Ask her what she's doing with all that bloody Orbanin. Orbanin is a type of antibiotic. Washing her bloody hair in it. Stanley says, you are using rather a lot of the stores. I love that.
What a great bedside manner, right?
Yeah, incredible. I love the way he just starts every sentence with tell her.
Tell her. You'll have a dead wife on his hands.
I think it's a real shame that he wasn't northern, because I think it makes better. It sounds better when he's in a northern accent.
Oh, well, he's canonically northern.
Yeah. The first ever dialysis machine was actually invented by a Dutchman called Willem Koff in 1943. He also invented the artificial heart. So he's known as the father of artificial organs. It's a good thing to be father of, isn't it? But modern ones are basically the same principle. It's a membrane, your blood goes through it, gets filtered, and you have to, do it multiple times a week. Some people with the home ones like to do one a night, shorter session once every night because they're at home. But if you're going into the clinic, you'll probably do it 3 times a week. Yeah, so that's dialysis, and that's doctor.
Can we talk about the cellophane?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to say about it, because at some point they just say like, oh, basically cellophane seems to be the secret magic ingredient of this dialysis machine.
Yeah.
Where it's laid out on like a kind of on a table.
Yeah.
And the implication seems to be that like you run your blood through this cellophane.
Yeah. And
it magically cleans it?
There's pores in it, apparently, but they're microscopic pores. And it basically just acts as a giant filter. And your impurities are filtered out and everything else goes through. I don't really understand how your blood gets through and the impurities don't.
I don't know how dialysis machines runs now, but like to the best of my knowledge, based on this, it's still cellophane-based technology. I was kind of like surprised, I suppose.
Yeah, well, these days it is usually something more synthetic that they can control the pore size of.
Yeah,
rather because obviously cellophane's a natural based product from cellulose, and there's even newer ones that they can use nanotechnology. But apart from it passing stuff across membranes, that's about the limit of how far I went into how it actually works. But you would think it would stop your blood cells as well, wouldn't it?
Well, I suppose the thing that really kind of creeped me out wasn't that it was. They explain it, and I'll take it as read. It was the fact that they basically wash it in a sink.
Yes.
That really kind of. Because it's weird. What I found weird about this was, and we haven't even got to the second half of it when it all becomes a bit, I don't know, fascist. Was the fact that like, and actually now that we know that this is a homemade dialysis machine, it is both more impressive and that she's a registered nurse. It makes sense because I was wondering why they picked her and not like somebody from the Old Boys network. Is that we see her operating and she's in her living room. She basically she puts this mask on. She puts a mask on, and then she's kind of feeding pipes in and changing knobs. And later on, you see a student doctor who has this catheter in his leg that seems to be permanently there, and he's cleaning pipes. He's cutting pipes, tubes, I should say. Like it seems to be understandably incredibly intensive process that where a lot could go wrong. And then the flip side was they were basically just rinsing this cellophane under a tap, and then just laying it out and letting it dry. And it's like, it's so peculiar, this kind of odd juxtaposition between the kind of the level of medical knowledge they're going to have to impart on you to be able to operate this. And then, I don't know what, rinsing out your cling film.
Yeah, actually, that was something that I read, was that Stanley Sheldon was a proponent of reusing this stuff, because before he came along, they tended to just bin those membranes after wijs, which obviously the dialysis machine manufacturers absolutely loved. And then Stanley Sheldon came and he said, "This is a massive waste of money. Because we can, as long as we're careful, we can rinse, wash these and reuse
rinse
them."
and repeat.
Yeah. And apparently the manufacturers are furious with them about that. But you do have to be very careful. You have to be very careful when you're washing these things, because if you get any impurities, they're going into a body that doesn't have functioning kidneys.
Yeah.
So the kidneys won't filter out any of the impurities themselves. So it could be potentially very dangerous and almost lethal.
I can't imagine it'd be great for us, but it'd be very, very bad for Olga.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the one thing we didn't want to happen.
That Dr. David Kerr that Sheldon was shouting about at one point. So Olga moved between. She was initially in Newcastle, and then she moved down to was it Harlow? They said Essex.
Harlow,
Harlow,
Newtown,
Essex. Yeah. When she married Ron, but when she was with Dr. David Kerr in Newcastle, that was what was quite interesting. Was that he was noticed that his patients in Newcastle were all developing brittle bones. And then when he spoke to Dr. Sheldon, Sheldon was going, "No, my patients don't have brittle bones. Don't know what's going on. Is it the water?
Is the water? Yeah.
Yeah." So David Kerr went to the water treatment work for the treats that serves Newcastle, and he saw that they were dumping aluminium sulfate into the water, because the water in Newcastle comes from granite rocks, which gets a lot of algae in it, and the aluminium sulfate was used to remove the algae from the water in the purification process. Whereas the water in London comes from chalk rocks, which doesn't get algae in it. Don't know, presumably because of pH or something. And so they don't need to dump aluminium sulfate in it. And that's there. So David realised, this is what's going on. Because their kidneys aren't working to filter out the aluminium naturally, it's getting into their bones. It's giving them brittle bones, and their bones are so brittle that Olga herself, when she was living in Newcastle, when she was bending over to clean her own dialysis machine, she was getting broken ribs from bending over the machine.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So I was probably quite glad to move down to to Essex to escape that
Well, I wasn't going to say, Ross. I'm glad you said that, but I mean, come on.
But anyway, so that was like a sort of almost a side discovery, and then Dr. Kerr then obviously told all the other doctors around the world, and they all managed to put a stop, or at least put filters in to stop aluminium remaining in the water supplies. So yeah, that was another key discovery at the time. Anything else you want to say about this segment, Mark?
The only thing I was going to say is that because we have successfully described one half of it, but genuinely, half of the 18-minute long segment is about the politics of funding healthcare.
Yes.
Which I thought was a very peculiar choice to make. I actually found it a bit uncomfortable, funnily enough. As somebody who works in government, it's like, there are serious questions to be asked about these kind of things. But when it's passed initially as a kind of a success story, and then at the end you're asked to show your receipts, it was odd to me. It was a peculiar choice.
I imagine.
And then the only other thing, go on.
I was going to say, NHS has been going over 20 years by now, isn't it? Is it 20 years?
Yes,
45 it started?
45 it started, or 47, I think. But yeah,
Well, I presume it was extremely popular at the time. I can't imagine anybody had a bad word to say for it. So it's interesting that there's a lot of concern about costs and things like that already. Because obviously these days all everybody complains about is cost, isn't it?
Yes and no. Well, they talk about inefficiency. They don't talk about cost. They talk about inefficiency. They like the idea of it costing money if it goes to the patient, but not if it goes to bureaucrats. And, bloody
Pencil pushers.
Pencil pushers, on the gravy train.
Snouts in the trough.
Nom, 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 nom. I suppose we will hear about this more in the next segment.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was a really tone deaf, I suppose. But then maybe that's just the way we grow up, or to put it another way, maybe just the grammar of TV as we understand it. Because the other thing we alluded to that I want to discuss was the fact that half the talking heads are, in a traditional style, are directing their answers to the producer off camera to the right. Half the time, they're being asked to address the camera straight down the barrel.
Yeah.
And it is unsettling. It is such an odd... And initially, when I first watched this, I thought, oh, it's interesting. The experts are allowed to address the camera directly, and members of the public have to direct it to someone else.
Yeah.
As though they are making a difference between the two. And then it was only second time around, after I'd made that observation, that I realised, oh no, half the time... everyone is addressing it down the back of the camera, and half the time they're addressing it to someone off camera. It is such an odd choice. I don't remember ever seeing it before in this manner. Perhaps they didn't quite understand the value of directing the camera face up. I don't know. It was slightly unsettling.
Yes,
there is a loss of addressing the camera in this show, which is interesting because it gives weight to the view of the person who is directing it to you more than someone who's addressing it off. So it's a strangely powerful tool or a strangely powerful weapon that they're kind of mishandling, I think.
Yeah, I remember being freaked out when I was living in America, and there's certain sports discussion shows that they have. And they'll have pundits on there, and the pundits will look directly down the barrel of the camera to give their opinions about things, rather than...
There's one called Sports Centre.
Something like that. Yeah. Rather than them just talking to each other or talking to the host.
Yeah.
And I remember finding that very unnerving when I saw that as well. Because that's equally, I don't know why it's unnerving. Because Raymond, when he's presenting, is talking straight to us, and that doesn't seem strange at all. It's something about having these experts doing it that makes it feels different.
It feels like you're being, I don't know, it feels like your psyche's being attacked. I suppose it's because Raymond's not giving his view. He's kind of introducing something and then moving. We're our guest, and he's gonna guide us round. That's what he does. He acts like a guide, and he takes us from segment to segment. Whereas the doctor here, their in-house tame expert that they have in the next segment, the grifter in the segment after, and then the final segment, it's like they're all experts, quote unquote, and they are giving you a direct view. And there is an intensity to that where, like, it's almost like the show is telling you this is the only correct It's not an opinion, is it? It's like it is. They are telling you what it is, and they're so casual with that. It's quite peculiar because the posh-ish guy who doesn't want the dialysis machine in his house because he's just got married, and him and his wife agreed is like they don't want that. So imposition. Does he use the word imposition? You think like you know, at any one point without dialysis, you are days away from death. I reject it because I have recently got married, and my wife and I feel that the abnormalities of a life, such as being dialysized twice a week in order to stay alive, are minimized by receiving this treatment in hospital. So I misquoted him there.
Yeah.
But he says it in such a kind of it's like he's annoyed by the fact that he has to do this. It's like, I cannot believe you're making me do this. Like him and his wife are like, oh, this is just like a chore. It's a chore that he has to do this. He addresses that to someone off screen, off camera. But then later he's asked to comment on the government's position, and he directs it straight at the camera, like he's directing to the minister. It is so peculiar. I found it very, and so once you notice it, it's like you can't not notice it. It's very, very odd. And in the middle section, when we talk about, you know, the Dutch approach to water management and how that may or may not be, well, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about it when we talk about it. The person who directs it into the camera, I think is given a position of power that perhaps they haven't quite earned, Russ. But I haven't researched it, so I don't know.
No.
Grifter. That's the word I'm going to use to describe that guy, but nonetheless.
Stop spoiling the excitement, Mark.
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry. This is my opinion, of course, but I am directing it down the camera straight through you. So.
My only extra observation here, Mark, is that there's a number of people, a number of times you see people wearing or putting on surgical masks in this.
Yes.
And more than 5 years ago, I wouldn't even notice that they were doing it. And now you clock it every single time, don't you? Because it just makes you think
flashbacks.
Makes you think of COVID. And then it makes you think of all the terrible anti-mask people. Sort of instinctive response in your brain just makes you think that. Yeah, strange how things change like that. Anything else about this segment, Mark, before we...
No, I think that's us covered.
All right, let's see.
That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Should we have a listen to see what Dr. Charles Fletcher has to say about this?
Oh, please.
Here is a statement issued this afternoon by the Ministry of Health. It is the Minister's aim, it says, to encourage the development of artificial kidney treatment in suitable cases. A conference of experts has recommended that facilities should be provided at regional centres for the training of staff and for actual treatment. At the Minister's request, the hospital authorities are now considering how treatment can be made more widely available, and there is now a Ministry working party which is keeping developments under review. However, the whole issue of artificial kidneys and other machines used to keep people alive presents serious moral and ethical problems for doctors. To discuss these problems, here is our consultant physician.
This wonderful life-saving tool, the artificial kidney, highlights a particular problem that doctors are having to face nowadays more and more as we get more and more efficient tools for saving life put into our hands by scientists and technologists. Now, these tools are expensive, whether they're drugs or whether they're machines. They're expensive not only in terms of money, but in terms of the time of doctors, nurses and technicians who have to work them and keep them working. Now, in this country, we're spending a smaller proportion of our national income on our health services than most other Western countries. We're building many fewer hospitals. We've only built 2 or 3 since the war. This sort of economy costs lives. There's no doubt we could save more lives with bigger and more efficient hospitals. But just think what the financial side means in terms of the artificial kidney. We've heard that there may be 1,000 new cases requiring this treatment every year. And supposing they live even on an average for only 10 years, after 10 years, there'll be 10,000 cases being treated. At £2,000 a year each, that's £20 million a year. Now, we could build 2 or 3 new hospitals every year for that amount of money. And in 10 years' time, there may be other machines, artificial hearts, artificial lungs, able to keep more and more people alive. There'll be so many machines wanted to keep so many people alive that we just won't be able to handle them all. And we shall have to be making decisions as to who should be treated and who shan't. Now, of course, there's no question about young people, such as we've seen in these films. Surely, these young, vigorous people should be kept alive if we can possibly afford to get the machines. But what about older people? Older people with disabilities, but who still want to stay alive. And this, of course, is related to another difficult problem we often have to face nowadays, of patients with incurable, painful diseases who are kept alive by medicine. Should they be allowed to die? Well, the Euthanasia Societies say that we ought to be able to get an official certificate that somebody's got an incurable disease, they want to die, and then the doctor can finish them off. Now, this is abhorrent to me. I can't bear the idea of a sort of official certificate, or even of the sort of committee that we've heard about in America that decides who shall and shan't be treated on the artificial kidney. If it's a question of money, then, of course, lay people, taxpayers, Parliament have got to decide how much money is to be spent on saving life. But when it's a question of deciding who shall have the opportunity of having their lives prolonged and who shall be allowed to die, then in tomorrow's world as well as today, I think that doctors have got to take this responsibility themselves.
He said the title, Russ, so let's have a drink. Let's take a shot.
Dr. Charles Fletcher. I do enjoy the way he pronounces yeah. When he says he says the word yeah quite a lot, and he always says yeah. Looks a little bit like Bill Nighy, a little bit maybe. Maybe a little bit like early Desmond Llewellyn as cute.
Yes. Like I mean, as this is our 50th spectacular, Russell, I will say yes to all your suggestions, no matter how wrong they are. No, David Llewellyn, I think is correct. Yeah,
but he just repeats the main points from
with the added fun bonus of roping in euthanasia.
Yes, yeah.
When talking about life-saving options, he immediately goes to, they're going to want to kill themselves, right?
Uses the phrase, and then the doctor can finish them off, which I enjoyed, of course. As you mentioned, he does raise a good point about how if you've got more different treatments, then you're going to want to treat more people, and it's going to cost more money. And that's going to, that just keeps going. I think that's probably, I mean, people talk about inefficiency in the NHS, but is that not probably the main problem between funding a modern NHS? Is that there's so many things you can cure and everything costs something?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's really, I think it's around. We have the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, which is a name, nice, which is a name deliberately designed to disguise the fact that its job is to crunch the numbers and say what is and isn't justifiable.
Yeah.
Because, £1 million can do something spectacular for one person, possibly, or it can do something incredible for 1,000 people, and you have to crunch those numbers. But I mean, even if you're in America, like, there's still no way that you're necessarily going to get everything just because you're rich. But again, like, it goes to what I was saying earlier. Is like, it's such a bummer. It's such a downbeat way of. I suppose I like Tomorrow's World to be enthusiastic about the future, and it will become it, quite soon. Even I can't remember. Did we watch an episode in '66? I think, and it was the Tomorrow's World we love.
Yes,
and I don't know. It's like it's burdening itself with some kind of it's unbecoming to be too enthusiastic. One must balance it with talk of euthanasia and expenditure. I don't know. It's just, it's so weird. And then the idea that, what do they call him? And to discuss these problems, here is our consultant physician. So that the show has their own consultant physician who just, I assume, sits in the studio waiting for the next public health item. Because obviously in the episode we did watch it in episode 2 or 3 of our podcast, there was the debate, wasn't there, between, and I'm just looking it up again, Professor Tring and Miss G. Smythe regarding...
yes.
Absolutely, yeah, regarding North Sea gas, which is obviously, now that we've seen where they started, which is just one expert, depressing us all via the camera, at least a pseudo-debate has a kind of a sense of, that we can have both sides of the story. I don't know, it's odd. It's very peculiar, Russell. I'm confused. What I'm not is enthused.
Are you not entertained? Dr. Charles Fletcher, born in 1911, which means he's
a
clear 20 years older than Dr. Stanley Sheldon. Would you? 50.
Would I have said he was 20? Yeah,
but,
he actually looks like he's 70 there. So.
But he was one of the first television doctors in the UK. He did a lot of this TV work. Auditonian.
Amigo, did he?
Auditonian, which is why he pronounces everything like that.
Yeah.
When he was in his early career, he was involved in the early clinical trials of penicillin, and his claim to fame was that he gave the first ever injection of penicillin to a human patient. So that's,
Okay. Did they ask for it?
He also worked he was an epidemiologist, so he looked at sort of illnesses that were affecting, a whole population of people. And he worked in Wales, and he obviously identified that the reason why Welsh miners were all getting lung problems was because of coal dust. And I just feel like, is that not just like quite a self-evident? If you've got a load of coal miners who are all getting all getting lung problems,
and no one else who doesn't do mining doesn't get it.
I mean, the culprit's going to be coal dust, isn't it? I mean, what else would it be?
Or something to do with mining, right? I mean, it could be some kind of horrible hammer disease that they're all getting. It seems unlikely.
Yeah. But prior to Tomorrow's World, he had his own television series in 1958. It was called Your Life in Their Hands, and it was one of the first television series to actually show the work of doctors and how they went about doing the things they do, and actually explaining procedures and things like that. Apparently, the sort of the BMJ and all his peers
hated it.
They did not want the plebs seeing what they were doing.
They daylight in on magic.
Or
just questioning their
No. And actually, when he died in 1995, and when he had his memorial service, like sort of representatives of the BMJ sort of apologised for that reaction to his, because obviously they realised in subsequent later years that actually he was doing a good public service. His other big claim to fame is that he was the founder of Action on Smoking and Health. Was it ASH? Yes.
Yeah.
Is that still around? I guess it's still around.
People still smoke.
Well, yeah. Well, smoking's back, Mark. I'm saying it. I'm telling you, smoking's back.
Well, we were in Paris a couple of weekends ago, and I don't think it ever left.
Yeah, but I mean, they have to, keep themselves thin and cool, don't they, Mark? That's the thing. This is the French.
They were thin and cool, Russ.
And how else will they set fire to, all the things they have to set fire to without carrying lighters in their pockets at all times?
Do you know what, Russ? Now that you say that out loud, you're right.
Well, now that first 20 minutes of the programme is over, we can whiz through the two tiny segments that they put at the end.
Well, now for a complete change of subject. This is Lake Windermere. It has recently been urged that water should be pumped from the lake to meet Manchester's increasing needs. Ullswater is also on the list as a possible source of water for Manchester, and the scheme has aroused bitter opposition in the Lake District and elsewhere, and a decision has yet to be made. Meanwhile, other schemes to help solve Britain's chronic freshwater supply problem involves Farndale and Upper Teesdale. And scientists are very concerned about this for various reasons. But this water has to come from somewhere. And one solution is to build barrages or dikes across suitable river estuaries. However, the building of large sea dikes is something which we haven't yet done in this country. It is one of the moves now being strongly advocated by such scientists as Dr. Drew of Strathclyde University. He suggests we could profit from the experiences of the Dutch, who have, of course, been building dikes for centuries. This latest and most advanced project is the Delta Plan, to build a chain of dikes linking the islands in the deltas of the rivers Rhine and the Maas. The first phase of the plan was the dam across the Veer Inlet, the southern section of the delta. Here the job was very complicated because of fast currents and a shifting, sandy riverbed.
The technique to get over the problem of the current was to begin the dike at both ends and close the gap with 7 caissons, large floating metal boxes with sliding sides, which were to be towed one by one into position. Once there, water was let in and they sank to the bottom of the riverbed. The sides of the caissons were raised to let the current through. And by April 1961, the last caisson had been towed into position. A few days later, at the turn of the tide, the slab sides were lowered and the sea cut off for good. Then sand was pumped into and around the caissons. Delta plan has stretched the imagination and skill of the hydraulics engineers to the fullest. Phase 2 of the Delta plan is the closing of the Herring Fleet estuary, due to be completed in 1968. Here, unlike other schemes, they've started in the middle of the river and will work in towards the sides. They've built a cofferdam, an oval dike nearly a mile long, enclosing the smallest polder in Holland. Inside the cofferdam, work is progressing on the 17 sluices which will let the water flow through while the rest of the dam is being built. Above the car there, the black oblong shapes are the sluice gates. This one is being lifted into position. It weighs 425 tons. The Delta plan is costing every Dutch man, woman and child almost £1 a year throughout the 25 years of its construction. But they regard it as a good investment. In Britain, one of the estuaries where a dike could be built is across the Solway Firth. The site is between Bowness and Annan, and the man who has done most about pushing the scheme is Dr. Robert Drew.
Today, in 1965, the nation uses between 2 and 3,000 million gallons a day, every day. Precisely the amount of water that flows through this gap, so that we could, if we could make it available in the right places, we could supply all of the national needs even today. If only engineers were involved here, they would take round about 5 years, perhaps less, and they would spend somewhere between 5 and 15 million pounds. The Dutch are spending 200 million pounds over the next 20 years on their Delta project. They spend 1% of their national budget on these sort of projects. Even for the supporting research and development, they spend over £100,000 a year. But not a penny has been given in this country so far outside a very narrow study placed by the Water Resources Board to see if all these figures, which are on the record and have been for some time, are correct or not. If we cannot, as is possible here in the Solway, take hold of a 1¼ mile gap full of possibilities to supply water, communications by means of a motorway, a whole series of linked industrial and social and amenity developments, the outlook for a resurgent future based on science and technology in this country is bleak indeed.
I've sold monorails to Brockway, Ogdenville and North Haverbrook, and by gum it put them on the map.
I think we're on the same page here, Russell.
Yeah. Shame we didn't do a little song.
Yeah.
There is something of the monorail salesman about Dr. David here, isn't there? Was his name David?
Dr. Robert Drew.
Dr. Robert Drew, sorry. We're not told of what his qualifications are, what he's a doctor of, and why he's come up with this scheme, and why he's so keen on it, or anything like that. He just seems to very intently wanting us to dam up the Solway Firth. He's not even Scottish.
No.
Yeah. What's his motivation, Mark? What's his what's his angle? What's his grift?
I was about to say, what motivates most grifters, Ross? God, I have to really think hard about that one. Oh, if only the government could hire a local expert who passionately believes in. Oh my God, what a crank! This whole segment is just based on his nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong; it is lovely. I always enjoy seeing. You and I have discussed this. I really enjoy seeing segments about big, huge infrastructure projects. They really excite me. There'll always be a bit of my heart slightly broken about the fact that we never got that Boris airport on that island in the
Yes,
Medway.
Yeah.
Because would it have been ridiculous? Yes. Would it have been amazing? Yes. It's like so exciting. Yeah. And so, seeing, the kind of the mega structures of what the Dutch are getting up to kind of dike their land It's always brilliant, especially there's a lovely little shot where you see these huge, the helicopter flies alongside some of these kind of big gigantic sluice gates, and there's a little car just driving along, and that everyone loves that kind of scale. It's absolutely incredible. It's really interesting. That's not what this segment is about. It's a bit like the last one. It's like ostensibly it's about dialysis. It's not really. It's about financing public health, and this is about one guy's grifty, cranky fetishization of a mad project up in Scotland.
Yes.
That would do what exactly?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. Provide fresh water for every home in Britain is his idea.
Yes. I assume all we have to do is drive up there on the new motorway with our buckets and just bring it back with us.
Yeah. Does he? I don't think he understands. Surely providing water for the whole of the country from one single source is not what... It's not like the pipes are all connected. It's not like a national grid of water, is there? That you can just pump it all from one end of the country to the other or whatever. I mean, surely having local sources is easier and more efficient and all of that.
I would have thought so, Russ. I would have thought so. But I don't know now. I've been swayed by Dr. Drew's...
And also, that isn't why the Dutch build their...
No, you made a great observation, Russ. Yeah, exactly.
They build their dikes to either to protect themselves from the sea because they're below sea level, or to claim more land.
To get rid of the water.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm delighted that actually it turns out that Tomorrow's World was festooned with Dutch content
from the off.
Yeah, which was good to see. Some of that engineering, the size of some of those bits and pieces that the Dutch are installing, very impressive. Yeah. It's still very modern looking as well, from 1965.
Yeah.
But then that is sort of contrasted with a man in glasses standing next to a lake talking nonsense.
Opining at us directly,
Yeah. Might be surprised to know, Mark, that I couldn't really find a huge amount about...
I'm not shocked.
About him.
No.
This Drew character, Robert Drew. I did find one mention of him in Hansard.
Oh, okay.
From July 1964, somebody asks the minister responsible for this kind of stuff about whether they're going to do something with the Solway Firth. Has the Scottish office looked at Dr. Robert Drew's memorandum on the subject? They say, oh yes, well, the Scottish office is looking at all proposals to do with the Solway Firth, including Dr. Drew's proposal, and that's it really. That's July 1964, so that's a year before this.
Yeah.
So do you think Drew has not heard anything back from the Scottish office? And
I think
he's trying to turn the thumbscrew, trying to build, trying to jizz up a bit more enthusiasm.
Build up a head of steam.
Yeah. And obviously, Solway Firth is still not got a barrage. Mark is still very much unbarraged.
Oh my God, wasted opportunity.
There have been a number of projects not Drew related that have been suggested over the years. In modern times, there's been quite a few suggestions because obviously in modern times there's a lot of sort of a move for green energy. You now use these things to generate electricity rather than collect water for people. So yeah, you've got the Northwest Energy Squared, Solway Energy Gateway, the Tidal Electric Consortium, and Tidal Lagoon Power have all suggested different projects to do in the Solway Firth. I particularly like the Tidal Lagoon Power one because it involved building something called Russell Lagoons. So obviously that was my favourite.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah, but none of these...
about ego, right?
None of these have been signed off because it's Britain, isn't it, Mark? Why do we sign off? So let's go back. More interesting. Let's look at this Dutch thing because I did find that far more interesting.
Russell has found a Dutch angle.
I certainly have, yes. Yeah. Do you know, or have you ever heard of, the North Sea flood of 1953?
No.
No, I'd never heard of it either.
The North Sea flood of 1953.
The North Sea flood, which sounds...
I'm not going to ask any questions. You tell me. Yeah. Okay. I have questions, but I know you're going to tell me.
So overnight, on Saturday the 31st of January... there was a massive storm surge in the North Sea. It was caused by, there was severe winds, there was a particularly high tide, and there was low air pressure, and they all combined. And it caused the sea level to rise 5.6 metres higher than it normally should do.
That seems a lot.
Suddenly. And it flooded the coastlines of England, Scotland, Belgium, and worst, mostly, the Netherlands.
Yeah.
19 people killed in Scotland, 28 killed in Belgium, 230 killed in boats at sea, 307 killed in England, and 1,836 killed in the Netherlands. Amazing, we've never heard of this, especially not even the British bit of it. Yeah, it killed. It breached dikes in 67 places in the Netherlands, killed 200,000 farm animals, destroyed 3,500 houses, and damaged 43,000 houses. And this is the thing. By the evening of the Saturday, meteorologists knew that this storm surge was on its way. It was going to hit after midnight, but the problem was that all Dutch radio stations at the time shut at midnight. So no warnings were issued. And because it was Saturday night and Dutch people don't like going to work, there was nobody at work at the government or like emergency coordinators or anything like that. No one was at their job. So this thing happened. The whole of Zeeland was completely underwater, like up to the tops of people's houses. Some people climbed on their roofs, but because there was no rescue crews or anything like that, and the water was there for a long time, their houses just collapsed down from under them, and they ended up just drowning because their houses collapsed. There was still no rescue attempt on the Sunday because the Dutch government still didn't realise that this had happened. It was only on Monday when fishing boats started to were in the area and started to come inland and realised this was all happening, they started the rescue attempts. So it's like over 24 hours after the thing happened that even rescuing was even starting. At the time, the Netherlands had one helicopter. There's one helicopter for this sort of thing in the whole Netherlands. So loads of other countries had to chip in and send help and stuff. And it was really bad. It wasn't nearly as bad in Britain because obviously Britain is not mostly below sea level like that part of the Netherlands is. But it damaged 990 miles of coastline, breached sea walls in 1,200 places, and caused, in modern prices, £1.2 billion worth of damage to the UK. And it went up the Thames and caused flooding as far inland as Canning Town, and was the main reason why they started the Thames Barrier project. So it's astonishing that we don't know anything about this. But
that's incredible.
Over in the Netherlands, they went, oh no, we can never have this happen ever again. This is one of the worst disasters we've ever had. So they started this project called the Delta Works, which is what we see in this piece. Delta Werken, as they say in Dutch. They started in 1954, so just a year after the flood. They came up with this planning formula, which is still used today by the Dutch government. And it's a very complex calculation, and it involves what acceptable risks are, what unacceptable risks are, how much things will cost, and how much damage will cost, and all of this sort of thing. And every time they get new data, they plug it in to this formula. And then if any of their defences are no longer worthy, they immediately start building them up. And that still happens to this day. It is enshrined in Dutch law, which is known as the water law, which in Dutch is called water wet, which I quite like.
Oh, okay.
Interestingly, in that calculation, they put the value of a human life at 2.2 million euros. Would you consider your life worth 2.2 million euros, Mark?
Well, I mean, that seems pretty good, right? Yeah. I'm not unhappy with that. Yeah. And it's only acceptable risk for North and South Holland to be affected by sea flooding once every 10,000 years. So that's their acceptable risk. So that's some pretty solid planning there. Yeah.
It was finished in 1997. By the time they finished it, they reckon in total it cost them 8.2 billion guilder. And I think there's roughly 2 guilder to the euro, something like that. So I think it cost them a bit more than they realised it was going to cost them. But luckily, initially they got a bit of cash from the Marshall Plan. That's that far back.
Oh, lovely.
But the big thing that helped them was that they discovered natural gas, obviously in the 60s. And they put loads of that natural gas money to this project, rather than frittering it away like certain other countries that discovered it at the same time. The original idea was a bit like old Shaw's idea. Or Drew, I keep getting his name wrong.
Drew.
Robert Shaw's from the bloke from Jaws, isn't it?
Yeah.
Robert Drew.
Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3.
So they were originally going to put this storm surge barrier in, and then it was going to be permanent, and then it was going to be like a freshwater lake behind it. But then all the locals and the fishermen went, you can't do that. because this is an important habitat. It's a saltwater habitat, and it's absolutely chock full of oysters. And if you turn it into a freshwater lake, they'll all die, and we'll lose our oyster industry. So actually what they do is the barrier is open most of the time. And it's only when they get warnings that there's going to be a storm surge, they can close it. So that's what they do. The government currently has planned all of their defences on that side of the Netherlands. The defences are planned up until the year 2200. So they are going to be spending between now and the year 2100, 100 billion euros to ensure that they've taken into account whatever they can think of, and the Netherlands definitely won't flood between now and the year 2200.
Well, you mark your cards, listeners.
But I just want, interesting, like that sort of level of planning and that looking that far ahead. Do you think that Britain would be able to do this kind of project?
Well, we do have some very long-term plans and things like that. Because the thing is, you can do that when it's something hyper-specific, like not letting seawater in on your land. Yeah. It's only when it becomes a bit more kind of complicated that you have to be a bit more circumspect. Yeah. Still, though, I mean, it's good. Especially if they've accounted for it. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah, nice to get a bit of Dutch content in that first episode. Anything else you would like to say about?
No, I think that covered everything.
I was just thinking, I wonder if the reason why we never heard any more about Dr. Robert Drew is that he got banged up for some sort of crime.
Oh, you think? Do you know something?
No, I don't. No. Just occurred to me.
Okay.
Grifting too much. Well, Mark, is this the final segment?
We are, Russell, do you know what? I love the irony that our spectacular might be our shortest episode ever. So let's make this quick, Russ.
Now, this is Mars as seen through a telescope. For 7.5 months, the space probe Mariner 4, there it is over on that side, has been heading for Mars at 30,000 miles per hour. Later tonight, it will fly past the planet at a distance of 6,000 miles, and it will take 21 pictures of Mars' surface. Early tomorrow morning, it will begin transmitting these pictures back to Earth. It's 134 million miles away. The signals will be picked up on receiving aerials of that type down there, and if this is successful, it will be a record in long-distance communications. These pictures will be transmitted bit by bit, and not until Saturday will scientists see the first close-ups of the Martian surface. To have steered the spacecraft a total of 350 million miles to her target is, of course, a fantastic achievement. It is, in fact, equivalent to hitting a farthing at Calais with a bullet fired from Dover. But the great question is, what will Mariner reveal? Of course, the possibility of life on Mars has been debated for many years. Faint lines seen on the surface have led to the idea that these were canals dug by the Martians, but I don't think anybody goes that far these days. A final answer to the tantalizing question will probably have to wait for a soft landing on Mars with a spacecraft, but that is still a few years away. Meanwhile, there is no lack of speculation about life on Mars and life throughout the universe. One man who firmly believes in its existence is the professor of physics at Cornell University in America. He's also done some work for the Space Agency, and he is acknowledged as a brilliant scientist. We asked him for his views on Mars, Mariner, and the great question of whether we are alone in the universe. Professor Philip Morrison.
No, we don't know what's going to come back, and it might be that those pictures contain something fascinating. Personally, I don't think they will. I think they'll give us, well, something new. A look at a planet from 5,000 miles high that we never saw before. But I don't expect to see those canals and channels and road maps that were drawn 50 years ago. It seems pretty clear to people now that if there were anything like a developed civilization, even an ancient and ruined one on Mars, we would long since have learned something about it by light or by radio. And we have had nothing of that kind from that planet. No, I think we have to accept that if there is life on Mars, it is at best a slow sort of life, getting along in nooks and crannies of a high-altitude Arctic tundra condition. The worst conditions, I should think, that we would find anywhere on Earth do not compare to the aridity and cold and thin air of the Martian climate. but the extreme variability of our own life forms, which extend from the boiling hot springs to the Arctic snows, and you know the rest of it, you know the complexity of it all, suggests to me that a whole planet isn't going to sit there for billions of years on the margin of being livable, even according to the standards of life fit for life on Earth, and not develop some living form, if indeed it is true that the origin of life is a statistical kind of matter, coming whenever and wherever the right physical, chemical, energetic conditions are available. We don't know this to be true, though I believe it is so. If we can find that, then we'll know for sure, because we've seen it twice, that the origin of life is not a miracle, but a statistic, the result of uniform, however complicated, physical and chemical and energetic conditions suitable for its own development. And that is a big question, because if we do establish that fact, and if it is true, then we can presumably argue that wherever in the whole galaxy circumstances permit it, living forms may sooner or later arise. And you see what that means. That's one of the key links in that long chain of argument that leads us to believe that we may not be alone in this big galaxy. The astronomical links in the chain are surer. They're not certain, but they're surer than the biological ones. That's why the life on Mars is important. We know, for example, that in our own galaxy, our own whirlpool of stars, the Milky Way, there are some hundreds of millions, I say that again, some hundreds of millions of individual stars with similar stability, long life, temperature as the sun has, close enough for practical purposes. So that if around those stars there are planets, those planets will feel a regime something like the regime of Earth, Mars, Venus, somewhere in that neighborhood. Now, we're not sure of those planets. Our theories are inadequate but suggestive. We have found in a mere handful of stars something like planets, and the handful is all we've examined. So our best guess is that among the hundreds of millions of stars, a great many, a large fraction, I would say half, certainly a great many, have got suitable planets. And if there are suitable planets and suitable stars warming those planets for the billions of years of geologic time as the Earth has been warmed, then why not find life develop? And if life developed on Mars and on Earth, not specially intervened then, but just a consequence of the laws of nature, we could expect that on those 100 million planets as well, which we haven't seen but can conjecture, we would be likely to expect life to form. And once it forms, its nature we see is to evolve. And I should think it would evolve in many differentiated ways, as myriad as indeed the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and the beasts of the land on our Earth. But if development has gone on as it has gone on here, and it's had a much longer time on the average, no reason to think it's synchronized, then it would seem to me that among all these myriads of possible living fauna, sites of life, some must have developed that kind of communicative capability of which we ourselves represent the example on Earth, and must have things like radio dishes and telescopes and probes themselves. And if they exist, whatever their form or nature, it's as long as they have any parallel to our technical capability and our technical interests, and that too must occur with some probability among the many possible ways of thought, they will try to signal. I believe then that the outcome of these little probings we do in the solar system will give us the sign to go ahead for a search for those possible, quite conjectural, I have no evidence for them, but the line of argument, the odds, are strongly in the favor of those who believe that these signals are there. And I think we shall try sooner or later to make a systematic search for them. If we never search, we shall never find them. The search will be made by radio listening, I think, with the big dishes, or possibly by use of optical telescopes. One will have to think a little bit more. What is the optimum way of doing this? We're not quite sure. But I firmly believe that already there exists in our galaxy a rather sizable network of such interstellar communication to which we represent one more of many, many previous discoveries of new oncoming members of the communications chain. And if we can listen hard enough, we will find that searching beam which counts us as one of those possible prospects. And when we make that contact, across space will flow, for the first time perhaps, the information that we are not alone, and the story of the history of another world, quite different in all its aspects from our own, united only in the sense of sharing a common understanding of the order of the universe, a common ability to make its presence known over the depths of space. That remains for the future. But it is exactly in this promise that the first Mariner shot seems to me to have its greatest excitement.
Professor Philip Morrison. And that's all for tonight. Next week, instead of the depths of space, we shall be dealing with the ocean's depths and some of the divers of the Royal Navy who are exploring it. These men lead an exciting and a dangerous life, and together with scientists and doctors in the team, they have put Britain ahead of the world in this type of diving. Next Wednesday at 6:55, you can see how they do it. Until then, good night.
Well, you know, over these different episodes, Mark, we've done these 50 episodes. One thing I've always said is I bloody love space stuff, Mark. I love a space segment,
isn't it, Russ?
Love a space
Consistently
segment.
the most fun.
Just love seeing those, like how those spacecraft work and where they go,
God.
where they're going,
OMG.
what they're up to, and all of this. It was absolutely with bated breath that I looked forward to this.
After the first 2 seconds, I was thinking like, oh, this will be a nice way of finishing.
Yeah.
We've had our greens, now it's time for dessert.
Yeah. But rather than, you know, having a lovely little look at the Mariner 4 spacecraft.
Can you imagine the models we were going to see?
Yeah, going to take photographs of Mars for the first time in human history.
In human history, Russ,
Yes,
that's amazing.
Yes,
real pictures.
Yeah, real pictures. We instead get a American in a library talking down the barrel of the camera.
We get a lecture.
Yeah.
Yep, brilliant. That's exactly what the doctor ordered, right?
Yeah.
First time I watched this, I could not stop myself drifting off. Second time I saw this, I could not stop myself drifting off.
I think he's got a bit more pep in the way
he's not uninteresting.
Because he's
absolutely.
He's a lot more modern sounding than everybody else because he's American and he's got a little bit more of a sort of a rapid fire delivery.
He has charisma.
But yeah, he's not telling me anything I don't already know, really, in terms of he's just like, well, don't think that he reckons that there will somewhere there is life out in the universe, but he's dubious that we'll see much from this Mars mission. And then he goes in to tell us about the idea that there might be life elsewhere in the universe, as if, you know, we wouldn't. Science fiction has existed since long before this program was on, so surely everybody knows about the possibility that there might be life in somewhere else in the universe. I didn't really. What's the point of this, Mark?
Oh, you said that with a bit of sadness at the end there, Russ. Normally, I'm the one who asks those questions. I don't know, because the thing is, it's not even a lecture. Like he's not even coming from a position of his expertise to set. It's like he's kind of just sharing with us his off the cuff thoughts, or like he's kind of almost like proffering his kind of biography of thinking that led him to become. That has him arrive chatting to the BBC in his university library. And again, like, it's not like he lacks charisma. He doesn't. It's just like I don't know what for whatever reason I just found myself unable to concentrate on what he was saying. And at the heart of it is because, once again, for the third segment in a row, you think you're going to get something. They even kind of introduce it as like, oh, they're going to talk about the Mariner expedition. That'll be really interesting. Unlike Tomorrow's World in the Future, where chances are they would have talked about a program at the beginning. They may have even touched upon it when it launched, and then because it was on for 40 years, they would have shown you the result, and it would have been, you would get that lovely kind of longitudinal storytelling that is always really satisfying. You know, we have learned nothing about this program from this show. So I was kind of excited to kind of like, I'd be fascinated to see how they talk about space.
Yeah.
Because it is full of optimism. Like, there is no kind of, you can't really complain about it. It's just full of promise, especially back then. And once again, for the third segment in a row, and why not? Let's assume the sixth. It's a complete bait and switch.
Yeah.
It's not about Mariner. It's about him.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't want to hear about him.
No.
Unless he's telling me about Mariner and the space project. It's about him and his thoughts and his views. And they are incredibly well informed, incredibly thought through. But ultimately, after kind of considering this, they're no different to the thoughts that you and I have about space.
No,
you know?
that's the
That's the fascinating thing, is how unfascinating they are. They're pretty generic, really.
Yeah. Yeah. He has no more information about
No, that's the whole point.
about extraterrestrial life than we do. Or anybody, or any science fiction author, or anything like that, because it is entirely pure speculation. So it's
the only thing I found interesting about this was, well, I might have found more about it, maybe something else will pop into my head, but it's the fact that at the beginning Raymond introduces it and he talks about the canals on Mars, not in they have been completely debunked, but in a manner like, we're pretty sure there's no canals that were made by aliens on Mars, which I thought was really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But it's all the more reason to, well, why have you flown, probably at great expense, a BBC crew to go to, was it Cornell University, to go to a university in America to interview this guy about his views, when I kind of assume if, you know, when are we due to get the pictures? Like in a few weeks' time? You could have done a much more compelling segment at the end. Imagine the last episode of the series, 6 episodes, I think he says. If that last episode was about, and here are the pictures and we're showing them to you, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. That's it. Well, do you have any views? Because you know, it's you know what? It's a wasted opportunity. That's probably why I kind of switched off.
It's Squibberama, Mark. It's Squibberama.
Oh my God, I hadn't even thought of it in that context. You're absolutely correct.
I did. So I just went away, Mark. I just went away and looked up actually what Mariner got up to, because that's what I wanted to know about.
Oh, please,
What I
yeah.
want to know about Mariner 4 launched on the 28th of November 1964. It was only meant to be for 8 months, but actually they managed to keep it going for 3 years. NASA's project missions tend to do that quite a lot, don't they?
They're pretty good at that, aren't they?
Yeah. They build things properly and they build them to last.
They're very good at expectation management.
Cost $830 million to build in modern money. Yeah, and as I said, it was the first ever close-up pictures of the Martian surface. Martian surface.
Yeah.
And actually, these are the first close-up pictures of any planet. They'd not taken pictures of any other planet before Mars. Mars was the first one they did it for. And because it was going so far away from Earth, because in order to guide the craft, they need known bright objects for their guidance systems. Previously, missions had used obviously the sun for one, and then either Earth or the Moon or Venus to guide. But this one was going too far away from the Earth to do that. So it was the first spaceship to use a star to guide it for its guidance calibration. And that star was Canopus, the second brightest star in the sky, and this was subsequently the one that they used for all of their space missions. Canopus is the guiding star for space missions. It had all sorts of equipment on it, as well as a camera. It had a helium magnetometer, a Geiger counter, a trapped radiation detector, a cosmic ray telescope, solar plasma probe, and a cosmic dust detector. And it stored all of this information on a huge capacity magnetic tape, which had a 0.65 megabyte capacity. And it had to store all of its info on that before it obviously stored it off and then transmitted it back to the Earth. Scientists were actually a bit surprised by the results that came through. They weren't expecting moon-like craters on the surface. They didn't realise that it didn't have a magnetic field, because Mars doesn't have a magnetic field because its iron core is dead. So it doesn't generate a magnetic field like the Earth does. It doesn't have any radiation belts, there's no surface water, and it had a much thinner atmosphere than they expected. So basically, all of the things that they were kind of expecting or hoping to see on there that might have helped life be on there, that weren't there. So it kind of dashed their hopes for that kind of thing. This Philip Morrison, Mark, he suddenly... I went, oh, he's an interesting man. I'm surprised I didn't recognise his name, because he was born in 1915, and he went to study physics at Berkeley University, and his supervisor was a Mr. J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Oh.
And during the Second World War, this Philip Morrison joined the Manhattan Project.
Did he know?
So he is actually portrayed in the film Oppenheimer, but
Oh, yeah.
but I didn't recognise the actor who he's portrayed by, so he might have got a small role. But his thing was that he was working on, that thing where in order to detonate a nuclear bomb, you have to use a conventional explosion as well to cause the nuclear bit to detonate.
Yeah.
And the things that do that are known as explosive lenses, which I thought was a good name, because it's a concentrated explosion that causes the nuclear explosion. And he worked on that. And because of that, he was the person that transported the actual core of the first ever atomic bomb to the test site at Trinity. And he transported it there in the back of his car, on the back seat of his Dodge. Oh. But yeah, then subsequently he was one of the people that helped load the bombs onto Enola Gay. Was it two planes, or was it just Enola Gay did both of them? Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
And then after the war, he went and visited Japan and looked at the devastation, see what horror he'd wreaked.
What he had wrought.
Yes. Ever since then, he became a proponent for non-nuclear proliferation, which caused...
Wee bit too late there, Philip.
Yeah. Which called Life magazine in America to list him on their list of America's 50 most eminent dupes and fellow travellers, because he was anti-nuclear.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's aged well.
Yeah. But he actually was a member of the Communist Party before the Second World War, but he managed to escape being sacked or blackballed or anything like that during the McCarthy era, because they just decided, well, he was so active in nuking people that he must actually be a good solid American guy.
Yeah. Patriot.
Yeah. And then, subsequently he worked on cosmic rays, invented the idea of gamma ray astronomy, and also, and this links into this piece here, he was interested in the idea of, because if you pick up these different radio waves from space, then maybe you could pick up radio waves from intelligent life.
Mm.
And so he suggested, well, we should start looking for microwave radiation that could suggest that there was intelligent life broadcasting this stuff, and that was one of the bases for SETI to be set up. But you might be surprised, Mark, to hear that they have not yet discovered intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. That's not a piece of news that you've missed or anything like that.
Oh,
that has not happened. Yeah, but he did do the other thing he did.
Wouldn't it be amazing if I learned through you doing research for this podcast?
There's one very nice thing that he did, which I'll just play a short bit of. Where he did the first one of these things, which you see on YouTube quite a lot now. It's called Powers of 10, and it was released in 1977.
Oh, I instantly know what this is going to be.
We begin with a scene 1 meter wide, which we view from just 1 meter away. Now, every 10 seconds, we will look from 10 times farther away, and our field of view will be 10 times wider. This square is 10 meters wide, and in 10 seconds, the next square will be 10 times as wide. Our picture will center on the picnickers, even after they've been lost to sight. 100 meters wide. The distance a man can run in 10 seconds. Cars crowd the highway. Powerboats lie at their docks. The colorful bleachers are Soldiers Field. This square is 1 kilometer wide, 1,000 meters. The distance a racing car can travel in 10 seconds. We see the great city on the lake shore. 10 to the 4th meters, 10 kilometers. The distance a supersonic airplane can travel in 10 seconds. We see first the rounded end of Lake Michigan, then the whole Great Lake. 10 to the 5th meters. The distance an orbiting satellite covers in 10 seconds. Long parades of clouds, the day's weather in the Middle West. 10 to the 6th, a 1 with 6 zeros, 1 million meters. Soon the Earth will show as a solid sphere. We are able to see the whole Earth now, just over a minute along the journey.
Yeah, so you get the idea. Yeah. So that was the first one of those, which I always like those things, because it really does blow your mind.
Yeah.
Actually, the distance, demonstrating the actual distance between things. What I am surprised by is the amount of people commenting underneath, young people, I presume, saying, They made this in 1977. How did they do it? How do they have the technology to do this? And you go,
bless.
It's an animation. That's all it is an animation. It's just, I mean, the first part of it is photos stitched together, and then the later parts of it are paintings.
So you may not have looked this up. It's from the Charles and Ray Eames studio.
Yeah, who is that?
What's this got to do with furniture?
Oh, is that the same people? Is that the Eames chair
Yeah.
people? I have no idea. Don't know. So he did that, and he did a lot of TV science stuff. I think he's got quite a good manner for doing that kind of thing.
Well, I'm delighted then we were protected from all this by this episode of Tomorrow's World. we were in danger of being entertained.
And then Raymondo signs off, and that's the first or possibly second ever episode of Tomorrow's World. Done and dusted, isn't it, Mark?
Inaugural, some say second episode of Tomorrow's World. Yeah. And you'd be pleased to know, listener, he bolts off screen as soon as he's finished his last line.
Yes, yeah.
That which is made can never be unmade. Right, let's rattle through the audit as quickly as possible, because I am excited to see if we can finish this episode under 2 hours, Russ. That is our birthday promise, or our celebration promise. So as quickly as we can... Right, crunch the numbers, quickly, crunch the numbers. Cinema box office.
Obviously, as usual, no of comprehensive one. Best thing I found was an article where they looked at the highest box office for London West End cinemas in May of 1965. And back then, you didn't get general wide release of films.
No.
It'd start in the West End and move to the rest of the country. So I reckon this probably as good as anything gives you an idea of what the top 3 films were in July in Britain.
Okay.
There's a recurring theme, Mark. See if you can see it. Number 3, Mary Poppins.
Okay.
Number 2, Sound of Music. Number 1, My Fair Lady.
Wow. Well, there you go.
So yeah.
That's quite exciting. I would see all those in the
cinema.
Well, maybe not Sound of Music, but certainly the first and the last.
So musicals, clearly the Marvel superhero films of 1965.
The musical cinematic orchestra.
Yeah.
Sorry, I literally stopped to think, can you imagine if Mary Poppins and Eliza Doolittle teamed up?
Oh, wow.
To take on the Nazis.
Yeah. They'd have to have a fight first and then agree to help each other.
Oh, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
My money's on
chart,
Poppins winning the fight, actually.
Yeah. Well, she backs up, right?
Yeah. Anyway, pop chart.
Yeah.
Number 10, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere by The Who. Number 9, Set Me Free by The Kinks. Number 8, The Clapping Song by Shirley Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7, Long Live Love by Sandy Shaw. Number 6, Trains and Boats and Planes by Burt Bacharach. It's a good Tomorrow's World song. Number 5, Looking Through the Eyes of Love by Gene Pitney. Number 4, Colours by Donovan. Number 3, The Price of Love by the Everly Brothers. Number 2, I'm Alive by the Hollies. And number 1, Crying in the Chapel by Elvis Presley.
Prices? We've had a lot of prices this episode, so actually this will be quite useful. I was almost thinking we should probably have this at the beginning, so much as money discussed in this episode. It's ungainly and unseemly, Russell.
Yeah. Well, obviously this is pre-decimalisation, so the prices will mean nothing to you.
Nope. Zip, zilch.
Gallon of petrol, 6 shillings and 2 tuppence. Pint of beer, 2 shillings and 4 pence. 20 fags, 4 shillings and 7 pence. An 11-inch black and white television, £59 and 17 shillings.
That sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. That's £890 in modern money.
That's a lot of money.
A copy of the Daily Mirror, 4 pence. Average house price, £3,344.
Oh, or 10 homemade dialysis machines, right?
Yeah. Ford Cortina, £644. Dishwasher, Colston Mark IV dishwasher, £82 and 19 shillings, which is 1,200 quid. Blimey, it's remarkable. Anybody who could afford any appliances back then, isn't it?
I don't think they did. I don't think they could, Russ. Yeah.
Dozen eggs, 3 shillings and 8 pence, £2.70. The Americans would be all over that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And a Ganex men's raincoat from Montague Burton, £11 and 11 shillings, which is 170 quid.
No Argos catalogue, obviously. Magazine covers?
We have Scientific American has a picture. It says the 4 bug problem, and it has this quite attractive picture of 4 beetles, I would call them, rather than bugs, on and some swirly, colourful patterns around them. And I was thinking, is that a Beatles pun? There's 4 of them, and they're Beatles.
Yeah.
Must be, isn't it? Is it clever Beatles pun?
Or just a nod and a wink.
Popular Science, amazing no-fuel space engine you can build.
Okay.
And how to cure vapor lock on your carburetors.
Okay.
Time magazine has champion driver Jim Clark, the quickest man on wheels. And that really surprised me because Jim Clark was a legendary Formula One driver, and I'm fairly certain Americans have only discovered that Formula One existed about in the past
Since
3
Netflix
years.
had that documentary.
I've genuinely seen people who comment that they thought that Formula One was invented in recent years. But then I looked into it. It turned out that Jim Clark won the Indy 500 in 1965, so that's why he's on there. Private Eye. It has what looks like a playbill from a theatre, and it says, The House of Lords presents Peter Hall's production of Schoenberger's Monty and Aaron twice yearly with the amazing orgy scene. And then there's like a statue of Pan saying, but what does Monty know of life, Ducky? So
Wow.
So
I have no idea.
I'm assuming that some lord was caught having an orgy with somebody called a lord called Monty was probably caught having a gay orgy with somebody called Aaron.
You have to assume there would have been gentlemen involved in that.
That's my guess anyway.
Okay.
And then Playboy has a lady called Gay Collier on the front. She's playing with a sparkler, and she's wearing trousers, Mark. A woman in trousers on the cover of Playboy.
Oh, I think I just vomited.
Shocking. Inside of the Girls of the Riviera, and Alan Sherman discusses sex and the single Sherman.
Sex and the single Sherman. Wonderful. Okay, well then let's order this, Russell. There's a lot to get through. The most important invention, I think we can all agree, is dialysis.
Absolutely.
Especially if you marry into someone who can make it for you. I mean, I don't have any kidney problems, but it'd be nice to have one ready.
Oh, I don't think I mentioned at the time. Ron Heppel actually that year started Heppel Engineering and started knocking these out as his job. He actually started a dialysis machine manufacturing company. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Keeping it in the family, that's good.
Yeah.
Fair play to them. Most worthless invention?
Well, it's got to be this fake Solway Firth barrier, isn't it?
I kind of feel like it is, isn't it? Yeah. Most inaccurate prediction of the future?
Would it be that any suggestion that there was going to be life on Mars, maybe?
Yeah. I thought I had a funny answer, but I didn't write it down. So yeah, I think I agree with that one. It's actually lacking a lot of predictions, really, isn't it? It's very set in the now and the practical concerns of the now. And by that I mean money. Yeah. Worst screw up by a presenter? He does do a bit of mush mouth at the end, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well,
Raymondo.
The only screw. I thought was it? Is it not? I thought we changed to worst screw up, but without a presenter. Didn't it?
Did we? Oh, maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
There is a bit where Raymond is still telling us, he's still doing his introduction.
Yes.
And the VT just starts before he's even finished.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Saying it. That's the only real screw up I
agree with that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, one suspects this was live, so that does happen. But, it's all very professional. Best attempt at making something boring interesting. N/A.
Yeah. Was there anything?
Well, it's just that they've made lots of interesting things boring. That's all. Like that's my complaint about the episode. It's like there's lots here that even, as you say, even that Pathé thing that you showed me earlier, all 2 minutes of it was so much more entertaining, and it contained more information in it, even though no one actually speaks on it except the voiceover artist.
Yeah.
Best use of music?
Well, it's only start and end music, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think the end. I prefer the end music more than the start music.
I think I agree with you. Which is Capricorn and Coda by Johnny Dankworth. Best or worst use of furniture?
There's only really the hospital.
Olga's bed.
Olga's bed.
Yeah.
Or one of the other people's beds. That bed with that strange smiling man that they don't speak to.
I like that. He was fun. I kind of wish we spoke to him because don't they use the picture twice?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
He's very happy. He's happy to be in hospital.
Yeah, or there's Philip Morrison's bookshelves behind him. They're basically the 2 bits of furniture in this piece. So it's got to be Olga's
we'll
bed.
Go with Olga's bed. Most notable clothing.
I'm going to say
all the face masks.
Oh yeah, the face masks. Or I think Raymond's wearing a nice suit. They're presenting.
He is wearing a nice suit. Actually, I will agree with that.
Very nice.
I'm going to assume it's grey.
Suit.
It does. Quite a nice thin tie.
Yeah.
He's on point as well, Raymond. Actually.
Yeah.
Did we see anything in this episode that made it into the future? I mean, dialysis, obviously.
Dialysis and
funding the health service.
Yeah, the spacecraft did.
The Netherlands made it through.
Certainly did, and
despite God's best efforts.
Yeah.
And what does this episode tell us about the 7th of July, 1965, or
the 14th of July?
The 14th of July, 1965.
Can't imagine much changing though between those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Television does not yet need to be entertaining. It's educate and inform are still very much in bold, and entertain is in brackets. I think probably
the audience can't be trusted with entertainment. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Well, that's that, Russ. Felt like more of a chore than it should have been, but that's the first episode that we're aware of. Done and dusted.
Yeah, you're not going to go. You're not going to go through the I suppose we're going to go through the tropes.
Biscuits. Yeah, no. Well, I suppose we can. So I'm just eager to move on. Really. All right. Presenter having to speak over louder sounds. Think of anything? No. Something to do with oil rigs? No. There's allusion to North Sea. It's tantalisingly flirtatious, but not quite. Suspiciously obvious brand name of the ad-free BBC.
No. Well, apart from that Interflora programme that's on afterwards. But
oh yeah. Oh no. True, but it's not. I suppose it's not on this episode, strictly speaking. Clear and blatant lying. Well, there has been quite recently by the British Broadcasting Corporation, because we are pretty convinced this is not the first episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Casual sexism?
Well, I don't know. That housewife.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, weirdly, they gave her respect for her position, and now I know why. It's because they didn't want to admit that she was actually a nurse. So, in a weird sense, it's like she's, I suppose I'm going to go with it. It's almost like she's getting more respect because they have to disguise the reality. So, yes, I think that is casual, but only since the research that you told me about. Before that, I thought they were actually quite kind to her. Dutch angle? I'm going to go with yes, Russell, otherwise we're not going to tick anything. Yeah, no evil farmers, obviously. Episode does end on a damn squib. I feel comfortable saying that. Were there any lasers? There were no lasers. Were there any magnets? No. There were no magnets. Were there any boats?
Did we see any boats in the Dutch one bit?
Only because they just happened to be by the sea.
Right.
So I don't think that counts. Does Baxter bugger off?
He certainly does.
He bloody well does, yeah. So that's it. That's brilliant. Thank you for reminding, Russell. It wouldn't have been the same without that. So of the 1,409 episodes, we have now covered, Russell, we have covered 50 episodes, leaving us a trifle 1,359 to cover. So we will burst through those. And maybe one day we'll live long enough to find the original inaugural episode of Tomorrow's World.
Yes. We'll have to send out a deep space probe traveling faster at faster than the speed of light to overtake the transmission, record it, and then
capture it in a mix.
Yeah, and then beam it back to us. So yeah, I imagine the technology to do that will be developed shortly. Yeah, well, what a lovely 50th episode, Mark. Here's to another 50.
Yeah.
So that'd be another 4 years, 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, 4 years.
Gosh, when did we start? I meant to look at what we started. Was it April, wasn't it? April 4 years ago or something like that.
Yeah. Of course it'd be 4 years. Yes, yeah. It flies by 12, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right, Mark. I've got to go. Oh, actually, hang on. I think my door just went. 2 seconds.
What?
There's somebody hammering on my door. Hang on. 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Unprofessional. He's taking his headphones. Oh, good sakes. Was that your gang lord neighbor or whatever?
It was the man from FedEx. Oh. He's handed me this envelope, Mark.
What have you got there?
Oh, it says to the lads at Tomorrow's World Audit time. Shall I open it?
Yeah. Okay.
It appears to be a VHS tape, and there's a little note on it.
Okay.
And it says, "Dear Russ and Mark.
That's us.
Yeah, congratulations on 50 classic episodes of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Here's a little gift for you. I hope you get a chance to take a look at it.
Oh my God.
Signed LG. LG. I wonder who LG is. I'll tell you what's weird about this note, Mark. It's like, it's a lot of, it's kind of a lot of misspellings, but it's not like they don't know how to spell. It's just there's far too many vowels in all of the words. I don't know what they're trying.
I'm amazed you were able to pass it, Russ. That sounds confusing.
Yeah, it does.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, I want to wrap this up. So,
shall I pop it in our video?
Pop it in and have a look.
See what it is.
All right.
Bloody hell, Mark. It's an episode of Through the Keyhole from the 19th of May 1999.
That's one of my favourite dates and favourite programmes.
Yeah, I wonder who the homeowners are on it.
The homeowners.
I mean, there must be. I mean, if Lloyd Grossman, I mean, that must be who LG is, isn't it? Mustn't it? If Lloyd Grossman himself, right? That's why all those vowels are in those words. So he sent us this video. It must be apposite.
This must mean something, Russ. This must mean something. Oh my God! All right then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, let's spend 14 and a half minutes watching this and see what happens.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to Through the Keyhole, the show that takes a hard look at the soft furnishings of well-known personalities. As always, we've borrowed the keys to two fascinating homes belonging to two well-known personalities. And with the help of the sainted Lloyd Grossman, for it is he, we'll be taking a privileged peep behind closed doors. But the question is, whose?
Oh, God, you know what, Russ? I know I'm eager to finish this and free all our listeners to the rest of their lives, but I feel just remarkably compelled and motivated to describe those opening credits in, like, I'm going to say the exact amount of detail required to explain them to everyone. So can you just give me just a 10 seconds, a quick 10 seconds just to go through this list I quickly rattled down?
You weren't able to do them they were essentially non-existent for the actual episode.
They were non-existent, yeah. I mean, if anyone's felt they were missed, it's because there weren't any.
Yeah. You might as well do them for this. I mean, they are beautiful. Right. They are beautiful.
They're beautiful, Russ. They're beautiful. Yeah, it's interesting because the first line I wrote down was, "This is a remarkably cheap combination of opening credits and theme tune. No time or money was spent on either element. It's almost impressive. The images that we see, Russell, are an ivory beige background with a paper-style effect which will remain on screen throughout the run of these credits. From nowhere, perhaps like the Big Bang itself, Russ, a flash of multicolored 3D shards explodes at us, creating a tunnel that the camera, which is our point of view, travels straight through. At the end of the tunnel is the oncoming shape of a poorly rendered keyhole. From that keyhole, the title card of this show is slung out at an angle, and then it's pivoted, and it reads, "Through the Keyhole," Russell, with "through" typed out in all white capital letters, superimposed on a rectangle that itself is rainbow-coloured, whilst "the" and "keyhole" are each displayed independently of the need to be hosted on a rectangle, but that they are then in the colours of the rainbow that we can see bleeding through from the rectangle there at the start. It should be noted that the O in keyhole is in the shape of a keyhole, but not the same shaped keyhole as the one that the word keyhole was ejected from. The title card zooms at us and slowly breaks apart to pass over and under our perspective, and behind it, the keyhole logo, not to be confused with the keyhole-shaped O from the Through the Keyhole title card, now spits out 5 cheaply rendered segments of faux film stock. On each segment is an image captured from what I assume is a previous episode of Through the Keyhole. They show us the following. 1, a lavish but tacky faux Georgian-style mansion house with portico and Doric columns. There's an ornate, but again, I think slightly tacky fountain in front of the house. Lloyd Grossman, I assume, looks to be standing in front of the house to the left of the entrance portico. 2, a cottage-style country home farmhouse kitchen. There are exposed wood beams on the ceiling and I think possibly structural wooden beams in the interior wall. They're also exposed. Lloyd Grossman, because it's him, stands next to a red Argo, which itself is recessed into a suspiciously new-looking inglenook fireplace that is surrounded by kitchen units that I'm going to assume are Quaker-esque. In front of Lloyd is a 10-person kitchen table with complementary uncomfortable looking chairs. Russell, I suspect this is a barnhouse conversion, if I'm being honest with you. 3, a large front room with double height ceiling and bay windows. This is likely to be a Victorian home, Russell. Yeah. It's been decorated with magnolia coloured wallpaper, as was the taste of the day. And it's furnished with duck egg blue curtains and soft furnishings. There's a genuinely very large and impressive chandelier hanging down from the ceiling. A ceiling that itself has ornate plaster patterning. In the middle of the room, there is a sofa and chaise longue in similar hues of pale pink to each other. And behind the chaise longue and sitting in the bay window is Lloyd Grossman. 4, I'm not sure what we're seeing here. Whether it's the close-up of a large blood red sink with gold fittings or a very small curved bath with gold fittings. It is quite difficult to work out what's happening. In part because it's in a truly appalling-looking bathroom that seems to have an unnecessary decorative flamingo, but it could be a swan. I did look at the silhouette of each, and actually, it blew me away how similar a swan and flamingo are in silhouette. But I know one thing's for certain, Russell. I do not like this bathroom. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Lloyd is not in this image. 5, it's a back garden, a very large back garden, clearly somewhere in a sunnier clime than we have here. There seems to be palm trees in the fore and mid-ground. Not sure where it is. Based on the size of pool that's in this background and the kind of the overall vibe of the place. I mean, it could be the south of France or it could be in and around Miami. Lloyd Grossman is not in the pool. He's not in the picture at all. I don't know why he's only in 3 and not 5. Russell, I have no other notes. Except that the final reveal peels away from the screen to reveal a smiling, talkative Sir David Frost who can be seen through the keyhole, and then the words with Sir David Frost appear. Sir David fades away to be replaced by a walking, talking Lloyd Grossman who strolls from a blue front door, almost like he's trying to pretend to be Doctor Who. He walks towards the camera. The words "and Lloyd Grossman" appear. As he stops walking towards the camera, the Through the Keyhole through which we've been spying on Sir David and Lloyd rapidly shrinks and fades into the ivory magnolia paper background. The title card re-enters the screen in the reverse fashion to how it left, with the words reappearing above and below our view. The title card then pivots and the base and gets fired off into the space into which we now see the sets. It lands on where the big screen on the set is pretending to be, because it's not really a big screen. Yeah. We can see now, obviously, the full chaotic set of Through the Keyhole. So David walks in from screen left to the rapturous applaud of a live audience. There are 6 rows of punters, lucky punters, but they are safely kept at bay by a very shiny black floor. And then we cut to Sir David Frost. I just needed, Russell, I needed a swift 10 seconds. That was it.
Bravo. I've seen some 90s things before, but this is extraordinarily 90s, isn't it? Every colour, every design choice, every sort of bit of image quality, every over-reliance on multiple fonts, everything about it is 90s.
There is not a drop of 90s that has been left unwrung from the dirty rag.
And the fact that this comes in 1999, I mean, I can imagine this probably even looked a bit 90s and dated in 1999, wouldn't it?
It's so daytime TV, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Of that era, it's incredible.
And obviously, through the Keyhole music, is a classic example of the
Yes.
The style of theme tune where the theme tune sounds like you're saying the words.
Yeah.
Did it through the keyhole.
Looking through the keyhole. All the clues are there.
Obviously, a lot of people might know Lloyd Grossman has a little bit of a musical background. I don't know whether he ever does perform the Through the Keyhole music on stage at any point. That'd be nice to see Lloyd Grossman actually doing a live version of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That and the old MasterChef theme tune as well.
Yeah. I have weirdly fond memories of Through the Keyhole. I always remember it being a Sunday night thing, generally, sort of like early Sunday evening. I don't think it was necessarily on that time all the time, but I think when I mainly watched it in the early 90s, late 80s, that's kind of when it was on. Just an easy watch, isn't it? And it's always fun seeing inside people's homes, isn't it? I mean, that's the sort of the allure of it, I think. Would you not agree?
No, I would. Absolutely. I mean, I don't have the kind of memories that you do. And I think it's because I hated her. And it's just because we didn't watch it. I think as I said before, it was like we didn't really watch a huge amount of ITV. And I think when this was on prime time, this was an ITV program, right?
Yes.
But at the heart of it is, I suppose, and the reason it wouldn't be on anymore is because it really was an excuse to nose around a celeb's house.
Yeah.
And what I will say, because we just quickly watched this, obviously the two of us together, having watched it, it's a remarkably elegant way of disguising the fact that people just want to nose around a celebrity's house.
Yeah.
It's they kind of give it an air of elevated purpose that I quite enjoyed. What I did always love about Through the Keyhole was Lloyd Grossman.
Yes.
And, I mean, it is one of the great impressions to still do.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
j'adore, David, it's Avery. Exactly. Now let's take a look at the clues. I still find myself saying we've digested, cogitated, ruminated.
Yeah.
It's remarkable, and I think possibly if you're older than us, then maybe you remember. Well, if you're a lot older than us, you probably remember where you were when JFK was shot, or when man landed on the moon. For us, it was probably, you remember where you were in 9/11. And then the other thing is, you remember where you were when you find out Lloyd Grossman's accent is from a specific area and everyone he grew up with speaks the same way.
I still find that exceptionally hard to believe. And I've never seen any evidence. Have you
It's categorically untrue.
The explanation is, he's from Boston, and there's some
Boston,
part of Boston.
a bit of Boston, yeah.
Go, well, where are the rest of these people that talk like that?
Yeah, they're not allowed to leave.
He's lived in the UK for a long. He moved to the UK in the 70s, to go to university, and he never moved back to America. I just feel that he's one of those people that he's got a trademark voice, and he can't. He's not going to lose it under any circumstances.
It's his moneymaker, right?
It certainly is. Yeah.
Oh, it's iconic.
Yes, I remember obviously famously him being described as having irritable bowel syndrome. Which
is a stupendously brilliant phraseology, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think my warm feelings towards Through the Keyhole were not based on watching it, but were based on the iconography of it.
Yeah.
The theme tune actually as well, but also just Lloyd Grossman nosing around on our behalf.
And it's also a rare too for being able to do the impression of both
of course,
presenters, because obviously hello, good evening,
welcome. Yeah. Which of course, as you point out, he can't do in this episode because it's a daytime episode, so he can't use his iconic catchphrase. Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I remember is and maybe you were the same, was especially as a kid, if you did watch it, you would try and play along.
Yes.
And there would be two reasons why you would fail to guess the personality. One, you probably didn't know who they were, which is a bit of a problem. And two, the clues are not there.
No. As you rapidly find out when you watch this example of it.
Only when I watched this did I remember how much heavy lifting Sir David Frost does every time. Because I was thinking I remember this. oh, now that I'm media savvy, I know that the panel secretly already know who it is. And you watch it, go like, oh no, they don't. They really don't.
They're really
Because
struggling.
so David Frost has to tell them through his own clues, and actually, he basically says flat out, like, no, that's not a clue at all.
No.
That's rubbish. I don't know why we showed you that. It's incredible.
Yeah. The other thing is obviously this episode of 1999 is a BBC episode.
Yes.
And I had no idea that it moved channels. And when I looked into this, it turns out that it actually started off as a segment of TVAM in 1983. And that's why David Frost was involved, because obviously he's the person that
that makes
started
sense.
TVAM.
Yeah.
And it was just a small segment of that. And it was actually there was a through the keyhole segment on the very first ever TVAM. There was one, and Lloyd Grossman's been doing it since the start. And the only reason he got the job is because the bloke who actually thought up the idea for it was a bloke called Kevin Sim. So Kevin Sim was a producer who came up with the idea for Through the Keyhole, and he contacted Lloyd Grossman, who at the time was a journalist and wrote for Harper's and Queen as a design editor, and just gave him the job. But that wasn't. Lloyd Grossman wasn't the person he meant to contact. He admitted that he'd confused him with another journalist with an unusual name, but will not admit who it was.
Oh, okay.
But I just like the idea that you can get to the point.
Write to someone.
Get to the point where Lloyd Grossman is on television with a job, and he's not the person that you thought it was, and when he picked up the phone at Harper's and Queen and went, "Hello, Lloyd speaking."
Oh, wow.
this Kevin Sim bloke,
broadcast voice.
Maybe Kevin Sim actually phoned when he picked up the phone. He went, "Oh my god, this is going to be a great bit of fun for the program." So then David Frost loved it a bit. So it was in 1987 that he went, right, we need to turn this into a proper full length program. So he got Yorkshire TV to start making full length half-hour programs. That ran on ITV until 1995, and for a lot of that time, it was, as I said, it was running on Sunday evening. And obviously, MasterChef at the time also ran on Sunday evening, so you could have a delicious double whammy of Lloyd Grossman if you wanted to, if you timed
double
things correctly.
stuffed.
Yeah. Then in 1996, it moved to Sky One for a year, and then in 1998, it moved to the BBC One. Ran BBC One till 2004.
As recently as that?
Then,
I know that's 20 years ago.
Then it moved to BBC Two and ran from 2006 to 2008. So it went through 4 different TV channels. Like it's one of the most movable TV programs I've ever heard of. Like it's like,
I suppose it is quite a simple idea.
It's almost like we must maintain this piece of like TV gold. this needs to be maintained for the nation, no matter what channel it goes out.
In my head, I was more thinking like, oh, that'll do.
They did revive it. ITV did revive it again in 2013, but it was presented by Keith Lemon.
Jesus Christ! Oh, I vaguely remember that.
And this is an interesting fact: the first ever episode of that revived Keith Lemon version was broadcast on the day that David Frost died.
Wow. Wow.
Talk about symbolic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and still we learned nothing.
I couldn't find an exact figure for the number of episodes they made. It's roughly 450. And
you could order them in like a week and a half, Russ.
Yeah, oh, that's a good idea. And I found this article in the Independent from 1994, which looked at sort of a humorous look at long-running series. And I've got a few facts from that. At the time, in 1994, guests were being paid £1,000 for their house to appear on it. The TV ratings for it, were between 7 million and 8.5 million viewers. The observation in this article was that the least attractive panellists, such as Derek Nimmo and Eamon Holmes, were the best at guessing whose house it was. And also that the tackiest guests, such as John McCrurick and Screaming Lord Sutch, had the most tasteful houses.
Oh.
And then under the heading, anything that makes you want to kick the TV set in, it suggested that the way the camera keeps cutting back to the celebrity's face for his or her reaction to the panel's comments, and this makes a good point, which makes it impossible for the people at home to play along. And I do kind of agree. You can't play along with the panel, can you? You can only play along before it gets to that stage, which I kind of agree.
You have to have your guesses locked in.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And then,
about that.
And then More seriously, there is the fact that it still feels necessary to telegraph the presence of a black guest by emphasising such dubious signifiers as colourful decoration and fondness for reggae, which luckily we don't have an example of in this episode. But I'd be interested to know how
100% believe that's
prevalent
true
that
there,
was.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And there was I saw a limited guest list.
Love of spicy cooking.
I saw the guest lists for the first 3 or 4 series, and there's some great pairings, like the band 5 Star is paired with Mary Whitehouse. But the absolute best pairing of all is Series 2, Episode 10 from 1988, where the first house belongs to Mike Reed, and then the second house belongs to Mike Reed.
Mike Reed.
Yeah, it's a Mike Reed double bill of the 2 different Mike Reeds.
Well, they pulled a similar trick in this episode, to be fair.
Yes, yeah. So presenters, Mark, we've mentioned David Frost and Lloyd Grossman. They were presenters all the way through. Clearly loved the job. I knew David Frost from for a long time, and I like when Frost Nixon came out. I was genuinely surprised. Why is the presenter of the news through the keyhole, like interviewing Richard Nixon?
I suppose that's where you and I differ, then, isn't it? Because I used to watch all those like Westminster interview programs and stuff like that, and he was a famous interviewer. I think I knew he did serious interviews. I don't think I realised he was big in America.
No, not
until Frost Nixon.
Yes, yeah. Like they're completely past that. Well, he kind of went to America and then came back, really. So it was like America was sort of the middle part of his career.
Yeah.
But, he was born in 1939 in Tenterden in Kent. His middle name is Paradine, or was Paradine, which is apparently he's a Huguenot name. Grammar school boy. Avid cricketer and footballer. He was so good at football when he was at school that he was actually offered a contract at Nottingham Forest. But instead, went to Cambridge University. And he managed to make it so that he was editor of the student newspaper Varsity, the literary magazine Granta, and secretary of the Cambridge Footlights. He did all those 3 jobs. He did only get a 3rd, so I think maybe he had too many extracurricular activities, Mark.
Scraped himself too thinly across the bread, right?
Yes, yeah. But I mean, obviously, it didn't do him much harm, did it? He obviously clearly knew what he wanted to do. He described it. He described himself as sort of like feeling very natural in front of the camera. He had no nerves or anything. He felt like it was the first time he went in front of the camera. He immediately felt like he was at home. Then, like Ned Sheridan picked him to be host for That Was the Week That Was, TW3, as it famously called. And interestingly, his sort of emergence as in the world of satire resulted in Peter Cook hating him. Peter Cook claimed that Frost stole a lot of Cook's material, and nicknamed him the bubonic plagiarist. And there was one time in New York where they were both in the same hotel, or where it was, somewhere where there was a swimming pool, and David Frost got in trouble in the swimming pool, and Peter Cook actually saved him from drowning. And apparently at Peter Cook's memorial service in 1995, Alan Bennett recounted that Peter Cook repeatedly over the years said that his one regret was saving David Frost from drowning, which made me laugh.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. After the British version of TW3 ended, there was actually an American version on NBC, which was like Frost's first appearance on American TV. And then you had the Frost Report, obviously, which was that. I had that famous sketch where John Cleese and the 2 Ronnies in it.
One.
Yes, yeah. He started LWT, and as I said before, he's also started TVAM. So he did a lot of behind the scenes stuff as well. And that sort of. He was also this sort of connected to Tomorrow's World. He hosted LWT's coverage for the moon landings in 1969. It was called David Frost's Moon Party. It was 10 hours long. He presented it for.
Oh my God. And of course, everyone was still watching the BBC, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah. And renowned as one of Concorde's most frequent flyers. He got on Concorde between London and New York an average of 20 times per year for 20 years.
Jeez.
Imagine how much he must have spent on that. I can't imagine getting Concorde.
I was just thinking that's a lot of money.
I would have slapped it all on expenses, I would have thought, maybe. I don't know. But one of his claims to fame is that he interviewed all 8 prime ministers between 1964 and 2016, plus all 7 US presidents between 1969 and 2009. He's the only person to do that.
Oh, that's quite impressive.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
No,
Yeah,
George W. Bush was the last one.
Oh, 2009.
Yes.
Oh, January 2009. Gotcha. Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Bit of a ladies' man. Dated a lot of high-profile ladies in the 60s and 70s, a lot of actresses and such like, but then settled down nicely with the daughter of a duke in the 80s. Which is,
how lovely.
yeah.
Oh, yes, of course, naturally.
Yeah. And then you got Lloyd Grossman, or Sir Lloyd Grossman. I didn't know he was a sir.
Oh, KBE, easy. Lloyd Grossman, KBE.
Yeah. As we say, born in Boston, 1950. And came to London to study at the London School of Economics in 1975. While he was in America, he wrote for music magazines, and then once he left the LSE, he got this job, as I say, at Harper's and Queen. And Through the Keyhole was his first TV job. So he was in a punk band. He still is in a punk band because they still play, called Jet Bronx and the Forbidden. And they had a number 47 UK chart hit, December 1977. Called Ain't Doing Nothing. Do you want to hear a quick blast of it?
Do I ever?
It's Grossman is on guitar in this, so see if you can pick out some extended guitar notes. Does that sound like punk?
Punky.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound like punk tune, is it? It sounds...
No, not at all.
If that's punk, status quo is punk, if you ask me.
Yeah.
That's like...
That's what, status quo, yeah. I can't imagine, I can't believe you'd had someone like Lloyd Grossman in your band and you wouldn't have him up front and centre singing.
He wouldn't get... It'd take too long to get through the lyrics, wouldn't he? That's the problem.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's played Glastonbury 7 or 8 times, amazingly, that band.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. He was, for a long time, he was married to Deborah Putnam, the daughter of David Putnam, but then they got divorced, and in 2024, he married Melissa Matchbull, who's an actress, and who was in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and she's a daughter of a baron. So,
for Pete's sake.
So clearly, I reckon, do you reckon on his deathbed, David Frost just gave Lloyd some advice. He said, whatever you do, Lloyd, marry the daughter of a minor royal. Everything's easy after that. And obviously, his cooking sauce empire continues. I would imagine the connection between Lloyd Grossman and why he's got cooking sauces is probably broken for a lot of people. I mean, how many people remember that Lloyd Grossman presented like MasterChef? Apart, obviously, we all do, but
you
I
have
can't
to be our age,
yes,
or older to remember that. Yeah.
But they've been going since 1995.
The sauces.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't get in trouble with the BBC for that. Actually, now thinking about it.
Yeah. Because obviously we discussed Carol Vorderman, didn't we? And we also discussed Michelle Roux Jr. And the issue the BBC had was that I think probably not the products, but the ads specifically were too close to what they were doing. Whereas I suppose Lloyd Grossman is just in his kitchen talking about sauces, right? So maybe it's because he wasn't talking about how because I'm surrounded by master chefs or something like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. That it wasn't so directly connected.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't start a key cutting business as well.
You hired a locksmith.
One of his jars of korma in 2011 was found to contain botulism.
Oh, yummy.
Which, obviously, any listeners to previous episodes will know is not good. That's really all I could find out about Lloyd Grossman.
Interesting. That's very good.
Spells his name with one L. I wonder why.
Yeah. I had to remember that when I was writing his name out.
Yeah.
So many times.
But shall we see David's little introduction here?
Russell, I want to meet the panel.
Yes.
Well, to try and answer that question, we have our panel. And what a panel they are. They're like 3 notes from a symphony. Never flat, always sharp, and usually found in a bar. Our first panellist is a former model who first found TV fame as Derek Jameson's sidekick, translating his words so that English-speaking viewers could understand him. Will you welcome Annabelle John? Our second panellist is a sports presenter who started his career as an accountant. How good an accountant he was, we don't know, but he did once describe football as a game of 3 halves. A bit worrying, but he's not worrying. He's Russ Williams. Our third panellist has appeared in Coronation Street, Emmerdale and EastEnders. In fact, she's been on more serials than a pint of milk. Will you welcome Debbie Arnold? So what's the game all about then? Well, all our panellists, and indeed those of you at home, have to do is to peruse the clues and choose whose homes these are.
It's nice to watch something, because whether you like the program or not, it's nice to watch something. You're like, yeah, no, he's just really good at his job.
Yes,
he?
yeah.
He's excellent, and like the fact that he kind of, was such a high-powered kind of heavyweight interview, and he also did this, and he looks like he's having a great amount of fun.
Yes, yeah.
And I enjoyed that aspect of the show. I really did, and that bit at the end. So I rudely spoke over your impression of him, because he milks every last syllable of those last 8 words. It's a joy.
I'd say his jokes are pretty decent.
They're
as well.
not bad.
I don't know whether he wrote them himself, but they're.
Well, the thing, as I said, is like I want to credit the writer for some of the lines. My notes have turned off. Let me pull it, because there's a couple where you go like, "That's really good," or "That's a higher quality line than you expect from something like this." So there was. I quite like the line, "The show that takes a hard look at the soft furnishings of well-known personalities." That is needlessly fun and smart.
Yes, yeah.
I really did want to, because the thing about that line about a hard look at soft furnishings is that, so there's 450 episodes, give or take. Let's say 450. It's like somebody had to write 450 completely different, or one assumes different enough introductions. A line like that just to be thrown away like that. And I did want to credit the writer, but the show doesn't credit the writer. There are no writers on the end listing, on the end credits of this show, which is bizarre, which either means that, it could have been like Danny Baker and a couple of friends, who don't like crediting, or it was a David Frost himself.
Yeah.
And why not? If he enjoys it, why not? Yeah.
Yeah. My favourite line was when he's talking about Debbie, the.
Oh, yes.
He says that she's been in more cereals than a pint of milk.
A pint of milk, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Obviously, it doesn't work written down because it's cereals.
No, it's a homonym. It's a clever bit of. Yes. Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
For a television presenter, his diction is actually quite poor, but that's what kind of adds to the fun of it, doesn't it?
or it always adds to him being an icon.
Yeah. Apparently, when he was still at university, he had a bit of there's a bit of snobbery against him, because obviously he was lower class than a lot of the people he was with, and apparently some old Etonian actor, when they first heard him perform, he complimented him on that wonderfully silly voice he was using while performing. They discovered afterwards that it was David Frost's real voice, which made me laugh. Yeah, I can imagine that. Quite a picture.
Yeah.
The 3 panellists here. The 3 panellists I always remember being on this, whenever I watched it, were Willie Rushton, Eve Pollard, known these days to everyone as Claudia Winkleman's mum, but kind of famous in her own right back then. Not famous, but well known in her own right.
No,
this was the golden era of the Fleet Street journalist becoming a TV personality, wasn't it? He also he mentions Derek Jameson as well. He's a prime example of that. And Chris Tarrant used to be on this as well a lot, I remember.
That's right. Well, yeah.
But we've not got none of those, Mark. We've got none of those legends of TKK. We've got
TTK.
Oh, TTK. Yeah. We've got the lovely Annabelle Giles, who's always nice to see on television, seemingly only on panels. I don't remember her doing any work or in any other field.
Not a soloist, right? She's more a tag teamer than a soloist.
No.
Team player.
Russ Williams, who I didn't recognise at all. but always...
I think they introduce him as a sports journalist. And I have no recollection of them. I remember him as a DJ because I think he worked with Jono, the large Australian DJ that we have had on.
You are correct. Correct.
Because didn't they used to be Russ and Jono?
He is part of the expanded Jonoverse.
Jonoverse?
That we're building while during this podcast.
Don't let people into our secret.
And then an actress called Debbie Arnold, who I also didn't recognise.
No recollection of her whatsoever. I assume she must be in soaps because I don't know. And that's not to denigrate. It's more like I just don't know.
As he says, she's been in more serials than it was a huge list of programs she's been in. Actually, older than I think she looks. She was born in 1955. She managed to be in Coronation Street, EastEnders, Emmerdale, Hollyoaks, Holby City, The Bill, and Doctors. So she absolutely...
Bloody hell. She almost caught them all, didn't she?
She did, yeah, absolutely. I'll quickly run through. I have a few quick bullet points about each panellist. Annabelle Giles, obviously, sadly died of brain cancer in 2023.
Yes.
Started out as a model for Max Factor during the 80s, and then moved into television presenting. After she got a job presenting a fashion show with Sarah Green in early 90s called Posh Frocks and New Trousers. I don't remember that at all. That's where where she got a TV breakthrough. And that Derek Jameson thing that David mentioned. Yeah. But then,
Which was, again, a wonderful line, but like that is predicated on this level of assumed knowledge that I think, again, if you're slightly older than this, you wouldn't get. You wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And the irony of Sir David Frost haranguing somebody else for having a mush mouth was definitely...
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and just in panels, left, right and centre, obviously, and one episode of Fist of Fun, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Russ Williams, as we have said, long-time partner of John O'Coleman.
Part of the Jonoverse.
In the Virgin Radio years. And then subsequently they got back together again in 2000s as well, after he left Virgin Radio.
Nature healed.
Yes, yeah. Also presented Soccer AM in 95-96 on Sky.
Oh, okay. Wasn't watching it then.
Published a book called How to Walk Yourself Healthy and Happy, Why Walking Exercise Boosts Physical and Mental Health. But Mark, this is torn out of today's headlines, literally.
I'm leaning in, Russ.
Literally.
I'm leaning in.
The curse of Tomorrow's World Audit Time is strikes early and it strikes fast. I've got a tweet from Russ Williams from 10:52 a.m. this very morning.
As we record,
April the 7th. Russ Williams is saying, Nation Radio, which is the radio station he was working for. Nation Radio, I'm off. Thank you for listening. I was offered by the owner and shook hands on a 2-year contract. Whilst off sick, he phoned and reneged on our agreement. Most odd. Thanks, Foxy, Greg Burns, Tony Didden, Derek McIntyre and Susie Maguire for being stalwarts. So he has been sacked from his job at Nation Radio to this very day of recording, Mark.
Wow.
Our podcast has killed Russ Williams' career.
We apologise, Russ.
Can't believe I could destroy a fellow Russ's broadcasting career like that.
I know, and you're laughing about it as well. You heartless man.
The second Russell to be brought down this week, Mark. I don't know.
Oh my God.
The rule of 3.
The Highlander rules, right?
Yeah, I could be in trouble, couldn't I? Oh no. And then, Debbie Arnold, as I said, been in every soap under the sun. Interestingly, in the early 80s, she was married to none other than Boise himself, John Chalice.
Wow.
Yeah. Also,
C-list royalty.
Yeah. Other interesting thing about her is that after the Weinstein story broke, she was one of 3 women to reveal that Michael Winner was a dirty old pervert, which, I mean... absolutely shocked me to the core. Who would think Michael Winner, of all people, would turn out to be some sort of horrible old grotty perv?
Grotty. No, perv is the wrong word, isn't it? Yeah, just a grotty sex pest.
Yeah.
It's always the ones you least expect, right?
Well, should we see...
Shall we go through the keyhole?
Well, the clues are there. Should we go through the keyhole?
Lloyd's on his way now to house number 1, so let's join him right now and watch closely. Because remember, the clues are there as we go through the keyhole.
If you're quite fit, this cottage is in a splendid location. It's perched on a hillside just above an extremely beautiful stretch of the Thames. Although this person lives on the river, they're actually much more interested in salt water, and particularly devoted to the excellent work of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. So there's an RNLI collecting box, there's a very, very action-packed model of a lifeboat in high seas, and there are a couple of miniature lifeboatmen. But I notice there's also a historical angle here as well, because this person has a definite fascination with the Dunkirk evacuation. A lot of the pictures here in the drawing room show an obvious fascination with ships and the sea. And here's another sign of an interest in history, because that's a book on the little ships of Dunkirk. Now, whoever lives here is quite a restless person, always interested in getting from A to B by the most unusual method of transport possible. So this person likes old cars and old airplanes. And that love of boys' toys contrasts rather strongly with an interest in avant-garde art. Look, a catalogue of a show by Carl Andre. Remember him, the controversial sculptor of the bricks at the Tate Gallery. Now, this is quite a musical family. There's a spinet here, and an organ, and something altogether more arcane. How often do you see a concert glockenspiel in someone's house? Now, as you look around this room, you can see many signs of an interest in the forces. Here are badges from the Royal Navy and the Air Training Corps. Whoever lives here is a person of irreproachably high standards. Most of us would shove a candle in an old Chianti bottle, but this person has a proper lamp made out of a magnum of top-class Burgundy. Scalextrics must be one of the greatest British inventions of the 20th century, and it's just one of many fun things to do here in the games room. Now, as you look around the walls, you can see that the interest in the RNLI is pretty intense, actually. There are lots of very dramatic pictures of lifeboats. And the interest in aviation is very serious, too. Indeed, I think this person may even have flown with the Red Arrows. Certainly, he's someone who has traveled a heck of a lot, and on his travels has brought back an amazing array of souvenir dolls of the world. Just look at all of those. Now, this room may seem very relaxed. It is, in fact, highly organized. The library here is rigidly divided into categories. So we've got bookcases full of motoring books, including many biographies of classic racing drivers like Graham Hill and Juan Fangio. Then, of course, there are loads of aviation books. But what puzzles me is, why is Gods, Graves and Scholars buried between a celebration of Children's Hour and a history of broadcasting in the UK? Well, whoever lives here certainly belongs to a sporting family. There are photographs on the bedroom walls that show that someone around here is a keen marathoner and a pretty good oarsman as well. Now, we know that whoever lives here is crazy about flying, so it's not surprising to see a magnificent Spitfire cruising over the bed. But how about this for a glimpse of futuristic transport as used to be? A model hovercraft. Let's look at the evidence. The Dunkirk boatman. A life in the air. A fast invention. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, but not for our panel, here's whose house it is.
Bloody hell, Mark, it's Raymond Baxter's house.
Now I understand why somebody sent us this VHS, Russ. Oh my God, it's Raymond Baxter's house. A second house of his we've seen. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
What are the chances? I would never have guessed.
It's Raymond Baxter's cottage, as Lloyd.
Sorry, his
Lloyd.
gigantic
I don't think cottage means what Lloyd thinks it means.
I don't
That is not
think
a
it
cottage.
does.
It's huge.
No.
Big old place by the Thames there.
It's like 2 flights of stairs just to get up to the front door.
There's a lot of clues in this.
There's a lot of clues that you and I would get.
Yeah. They don't concentrate that much on the Tomorrow's World
The
aspect.
thing people know him for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Raymond was a Spitfire pilot and that he had a strong interest in motor racing and that he owned a boat. But
Yeah.
how much common knowledge was that in 1999?
As we will discover from the panel shortly, it was not common knowledge.
Any comments on Raymond's interior?
I was thinking about that. I almost put notes down about the house, but actually his house, and I'm very happy we can discuss this now, Russell, his house is exactly what you'd expect from Raymond Baxter's house.
Yeah.
Not least because we've already seen one of his homes, but it's like it is a perfectly appropriate home for a gentleman of his vintage with his life story. There was nothing horrible about it. There was nothing amazing about it. It was just a very nice home for, I'm assuming, him and his wife, having retired there. Obviously, I assume the show has staged some of this stuff. He probably owned them, but they, I cannot, not for 1 second do I believe that Raymond Baxter just leaves a Scale Extra track hanging around his house. But I assume that means that he entertains his grandkids, which is, again, it's all completely appropriate. It was perfectly fine. Nothing outrageously exceptional. Obviously, you and I are hoping that there's some kind of giant mind globe in his kitchen or something like that,
I mean, I was very excited that there was so much boat content. I thought,
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, that is Tomorrow's World through and through. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't see any
any oil rigs.
Yeah, little model of an oil rig or anything like that. Yeah, no, it's basically this man is interested in cars, boats, and planes.
Yes, go figure.
Have a guess.
Yeah, yeah. Is it Jeremy Clarkson?
Yeah.
His dad. Sorry, is it Jeremy Clarkson's dad? Sorry, I'm spoiling things. Yeah, no, it was like there was nothing kind of. Again, it kind of goes what I was saying. Is I watched this, knowing who it was, and still I was going like, "There's no way you wouldn't get it."
No, I subsequently found out that Raymond was chairman of the RNLI's Public Relations Committee.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so much RNLI stuff.
No, absolutely. The idea that he was part of that charity makes perfect sense. I doubt many people were terribly au fait with the governance structure of the RNLI in 1999, or indeed now.
He was also founder member of the Association of Dunkirk Little Ships, which is because one of his ships was actually used during the Dunkirk evacuation.
Yeah. Oh, see, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but again, I didn't know that, and it's not actually mentioned in the show.
So while he was up in the sky shooting down the Hun, somebody borrowed his boat.
Okay.
Baxter basically single-handedly won World War II, as far as I can tell from this sort of from this info. But yeah, no, I don't know how much the public know about that.
He'd also been off Tomorrow's World for a decade at this point, right? Or more, in fact.
More, 2 decades. Over 2 decades. Yeah, but I think still very famous. I think, but probably not the front of people's.
No.
How much? Yeah. What is there in that? There's like one book that's about broadcasting, I think.
It's the history of Children's Hour, and then a celebration of Children's Hour and the history of British broadcasting or broadcasting in Britain. Yeah. They're the only 2 allusions to a history on TV or some kind of presenting role, I think.
Yeah,
that I remember. I mean, I wrote out the full long list, and it's all focused on boats. Amusingly for us, I mean, brilliantly, wonderfully, it's all focused on boats.
And apart from one bit where they really focus on some musical instruments, is it like a glockenspiel?
Oh yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, an organ, a glockenspiel, and the other one I didn't know. I had to write it down somewhere.
Obviously,
a spinet.
A spinet.
Yeah, I didn't know what a spinet was.
No, I never heard of a spinet. Obviously, I don't remember whether it used to be this bad. Why are they showing clues that are nothing to do with the guest? Is that just part of the wanting to show us the house more than actually wanting us to guess the guest?
I suppose, in a sense, they have shown us Raymond Baxter, the man.
Yeah.
But they're asking people to guess Raymond Baxter, the personality.
Right,
And those two things are not the same. You know, one is very much a concentrated version of the person who he really is. So at the house, we see who he is and his passions and his interests. But that's not what we know him for. And we'll see this in the next guest as well. Whereas there is the person, and then there is what we know them for and what they are to us. And they're not the same thing necessarily. That one is part of the other. And I think, without having seen another episode in the last 25 years, I suspect that was the issue. Because as I said, you'd play along at home in the sense that you'd be walking around, you'd be watching, you'd be judging the decor and the taste and how they spent their money. But you would be looking at the clues, because obviously they are told to you that they're clues, and you wouldn't know who they were unless you knew Raymond Baxter as your neighbour. You wouldn't know that. We didn't know that he was that his boat was borrowed for Dunkirk. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
He led a fascinating life, which is alluded to in the interview. But what's about Tomorrow's World? Nothing really.
Maybe he excised all Tomorrow's World stuff from his house after falling out.
Oh,
I don't know if he
no.
does his job and fell out with that person.
There was no bikes either. He probably burns them all whenever he sees them in the street.
Yeah, throws them in the Thames. So shall we see, with all that information, let's see how well the panel
clues
do.
are there, Russell.
The
What
clues
do they need?
Well,
it's over to you.
Annabelle.
Is it someone who is or was in the Fleet Air Arm, which is the flying part of the Navy? Thank goodness for that.
He certainly was a flyer.
Right. Just my father was in the Fleet Air Arm. If I didn't get that right, there'd be trouble. Yes. And now I think it's Russ's turn.
Thanks very much, Annabelle. You're so nice to me, aren't you?
You know it's a man.
Well, yes, I mean, that was great. I'll tell you what I was thinking. I was looking round the house like the rest of us. If they ever decided to hold an antiques roadshow near the person whose house it is, they keep the whole team going for about a year, wouldn't they? With all that stuff in that house. There was some beautiful stuff in there. I'm going to hazard a guess that it's somebody who may have been a flyer, but now perhaps has retained a passion for flying, but also is perhaps interested in motorsport.
Yes.
Machines.
Machines. And would this person... by repeating what you said, I think I'll do this more. And has he now become a sort of presenter of this? So we've got a man who's presenting things about machines, vroom vrooms, racing cars. Thank you, Annabelle. Racing car presenter. A racing car presenter. No.
Well, no, but you're right that he's been a very distinguished presenter. Yes, and you see some of his interest there. That's absolutely right.
A presenter of lifeboats. No. Is the lifeboats a hobby? No.
Yes. Well, it's a charity.
No. There's a spinet. Is that a spinet and a concert glockenspiel and a organ? No, nothing to do with.
He doesn't present concerts.
No. Russ, you're a bloke. You must know him.
Well, funny enough, I don't know many blokes with glockenspiels in their house, funny enough.
But who presenters?
Is the glockenspiel significant?
No.
Right. It's not Patrick
That's
Moore, then.
the Sainted Lloyd being naughty. OK. Travel broadcasting, travel, machines. Not Jeremy Clarkson's dad.
No, but he's of the same generation as Patrick Moore, probably.
Ooh. Was he a famous racing driver?
No.
I might burst into tears soon.
Yes.
Anybody?
Is he a... What sort of presenter is he? That's what I'm trying to find out. Is he a... does he present... he presents programmes. It's funny because you said a children's hour book, and I wondered if he'd done some children's presenting. Obviously not.
Well,
just sort of
more for grown-ups, though children love some of his shows.
Radio or television
TV.
presenter?
Television.
Presenter of...
Oh, this is going to be someone who's going to go, oh, no, of
Yes,
course,
you really are.
We really are.
Do you
want to
there
sack
was
us
a
all?
reference that Lloyd made there to the future, or futuristic.
Back to the Future.
Space thing. Space?
No, that was when Lloyd pointed out the hovercraft.
So what was the hovercraft?
So the programmes, he may have been a presenter from...
So yes, Tomorrow's World? Tomorrow's World?
Raymond Baxter.
Yes. Raymond Baxter, will you come through the keyhole?
The panel would not have got this, would they? Without.
No.
I mean, David gets it. And the only reason David gets it is because he knows who he is.
He knows it is, yeah. He met him. Met him at some bar they share to go, club that they go to. Oh, Raymond probably doesn't anymore, but yeah. And it was only when I was watching, because again, as I said to you, like I was a bit cynical, like, oh, and they know who it is. They have to work their way through it. It's like, no, actually, I had forgotten how much David leads a panel into shaping the panel's thoughts into getting the guest, which he does quite. Like it's weird. He takes that bit of his role quite seriously, I think.
Yeah.
He's I don't know. He's like their dad, and he's willing them on. He just wants them to succeed.
It's not a fun watch, though, is it?
No, it's not. I hated it. I really hated watching it. Absolutely abhorred it.
Well, because they're so utterly clueless.
Yes.
And then the audience aren't especially helpful with their applause and non-applause, and and you can't narrow. I don't know. It's hard to narrow these things down in the short amount of time they have, and they're limited amount.
I mean, obviously exactly, because obviously I was just thinking, like, the audience are led. Clearly, there's somebody telling them to clap or not clap, so they are kind of paying quite a lot of attention to what the audience agree with. But whoever's leading the audience are selling them a pup. I found this a very unpleasant watch. It's so cringy, and it's not the fault of Russ and Annabelle and who's the other one, Sheila or Sarah or whatever. It's because they have no idea. It's like I can't imagine the raw panic that must go through your head when you go like, I don't know who this is, because they're all quite eager for somebody else's stars, which I did quite find quite believable and quite entertaining. But then after that point, it's just not fun TV.
Well, sometimes I was thinking while I was watching this, maybe it'd be better without the panel guessing element.
But then you lose the game show aspect, and at that point, you're just missing that you're just letting people nose around somebody's house. It's the game show aspect that allows the prurience to be let free.
Yeah. I suppose, it was still a couple more years before MTV Cribs started.
Yeah, or people just putting it on Instagram now.
Yes, yeah. But I think it's noticeable that as soon as David says the word tomorrow's in the future, then, boom, immediately Raymond Baxter, bosh. So maybe Lloyd should have found something with the word tomorrow in it, or said the word tomorrow during his clue giving.
Yeah, I suppose the weak spot here is Lloyd, isn't it? It's like it's all predicated on Lloyd's ability to convey who it is, and not get lost in the weeds. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I had the same thought you did, just like, this would be much better without the panel. But the panel, unfortunately, is what everything pivots on. So you have to. Yeah, God, it's really awkward. It's unpleasant. And the thing is, like, the list you were mentioning earlier of people that you remember being on, was like, actually, there's some people on the list who were kind of witty and entertaining. It's not that these aren't, but they're not entertaining either, if that makes sense. They're trying their darndest, but like, you need a Willie Rushton on there, don't you?
Yes, yeah, and Alan Corran was on it as well a bit.
Alan Corran, absolutely, yeah.
Well, should we see what Raymond's got to say for himself? Always nice to see Raymond.
Yeah, it is actually. Let's.
It's a joy to have you with us, Raymond. And the Fleet Air Arm question, I knew you flew Spitfires in the war and so on and so forth, but what are those buttons? Are they...
Royal Air Force.
Royal Air Force.
Not Fleet Air Arm.
Not Fleet Air Arm.
Sorry,
but I
do
had many
apologise.
friends in the Fleet Air Arm, and still do.
Good.
So all is well. Phew.
Yes.
You have not committed a gaffe at all.
Thank God for that.
How many missions did you fly on Spitfires?
In terms of mission, I don't know, about 200 and something, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was lucky. I was certainly very lucky.
Yeah. Now, after the war, you were forces broadcasting and so on. And how did you end up in BBC Outside Broadcast?
Well, I after a good deal of hammering on the back door of Broadcasting House, I was taken on probation to do the staff training course, which in those days was the University of Broadcasting, anywhere in the world. And the visiting lecturer in outside broadcast technique was Winford Vaughan Thomas. And this will take you back. Yeah. And the test piece was to do a commentary on an unseen black and white 16mm film of the Lord Mayor's show. And I'd always been interested in outside broadcasts anyway. So Winford very kindly recommended me to the boss, and that's how it all started.
Then it was 1965, wasn't it, in fact, when Tomorrow's World
started, with
which you will be forever, ever associated. And it started as a 6-part series or something?
Yeah, a trial run of 6. And it's been on the air ever since.
And the futuristic thing that we were talking about there that gave them the chink at the end of the tunnel there, what were some of the inventions that you unearthed before they caught on?
Well, there's so many, to be perfectly honest. I remember holding in my fingers a little plastic card about that big and saying, "This is the currency of the future." Yeah. I remember talking to Christian Barnard live by telephone after the first heart transplant operation. We televised live the first hovercraft crossing of the English Channel. I was the only passenger. I was also the navigator and broadcaster.
And of course you went on doing lots of commentaries. You did the funeral, some of the funerals, Winston Churchill's funeral, and the Mountbatten funeral, which must have been a very sad occasion.
Yeah, very, very moving. But we had the happy ones too. I did the coronation on radio in Trafalgar Square. That was quite an adventure because shall I tell you the story?
Yes, please.
I was on a built-up dais under the equestrian statue of Charles II in Trafalgar Square. You know the one? And there was a low balustrade in front of it, and at the back were the gentlemen of the press with their cameras, who was supposed to stay up there. But of course, as the excitement mounted, and this wonderful image of the royal coach coming through the Admiralty Arch, all the pressmen came forward, crowding me, and the only way I could see was to lean over this balustrade as far as I could, like with my legs there, while my number 2, James Pestridge, held my feet, so that leaning out like that, I could see what was going on. Unfortunately, James was carried away by the excitement of the moment, threw his hat in the air, letting go both my legs, and I very near wound up interviewing the lead horse of the Windsor Grades.
That's a great story. Well, that book about the broadcasting in the UK, you are the voice of broadcasting in the UK for many people, and this is the Through the Keyhole key that says thanks a million for being with us.
Thank you.
Raymond Baxter, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Raymond Baxter. Raymond Baxter.
So he did an episode from a hovercraft, Mark. So that explains why Lloyd has focused on that model hovercraft. I wonder how many people remembered that particular hovercraft episode of Tomorrow's World.
Seems a bit of a reach.
But yeah, over 200 Spitfire missions. So yeah,
remarkable.
I'd love to know how many Germans he shot down.
Why is that your go-to response whenever we discuss his war record?
Well, I want to know whether he was a cold-blooded sky murderer, or whether he,
murderer,
or whether it was just more sort of escorting, or I don't know. Just like
he did do something that because I was struck by it. He did that thing that a lot of people do who are of his generation and clearly got up to some stuff. And in his case, like 200 sorties is incredible. And when people are like, oh, wow, wow, it's brilliant. And obviously, like, if he's an American, they'd be, oh, thank you for your service and a round of applause. And it's all very quiet. It's like, no, he did what was required of him. But he you could see him reflecting. He's like, yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah.
And my question is like, you wonder how many people he lost who were close and dear to him. How many friends did he lose? How many? It's like, you know, whatever he did came at a price, and that he was able to go on and have an incredible career and be beloved was because he was lucky. And I always find that quite probably more sobering than, you know, stories of dare doing, that kind of subtle where you see them reflecting. Like there's probably not a day goes by when he doesn't think about something or someone he lost.
Yeah. But would you have preferred maybe a short anecdote about some sort of daring mission rather than that anecdote about covering the Lord Mayor's show that he does give us?
The coronation, you mean?
Oh, was it the coronation? Sorry.
Yeah, it was the coronation. His hilarious coronation anecdote, Russ.
Yeah.
The one that we just both agreed we were going to skip through, like rewatching for a third time, because it's just too good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably would have been. Because the thing is, I actually really enjoyed the interview. And there's some lovely little nuggets of Tomorrow's World lore for us to kind of etch into our vellum archive books. 6-part series. It was supposed to be a 6-part series. And that somehow remarkably, based on the evidence of what we saw earlier, remarkably made it through that short period. And then just his little kind of remembrances, his little audit time that he did, you know, thinking about like the first time he, you know, I assume held a credit card or a charge card or whatever they're called, and talking to Christian Barnard on the phone after the let the man rest, please, after seeing the first transplant operation. And then the hovercraft, like, that's, you know, he's doing our job for us. How dare he? Does he think unpark your tanks off our lawn? It was a really good interview, but again, like himself and Sir David thought that anecdote was barely an anecdote about the coronation, was much more entertaining than we did. And I can only assume it's a generational thing where like anything to do with the coronation and the Queen is instantly has the power of 10 thrust upon it in terms of entertainment stakes.
It's just like, I imagine Raymond
It's a non-story.
Raymond's done so many interesting, exciting things in his life, and that's the one that he pulls out.
That's what he pulls out. It must mean a lot to him.
Obviously. Well, I wonder who's up next, Mark.
Oh, it's probably no one, Russ. Probably no one connected to Tomorrow's World.
Well, remember the clues. The clues are there.
Now, I wonder who's next. Well, the best way to find out is to join Lloyd right now as he approaches house number 2 as we go through the keyhole.
You can tell pretty immediately that this early Victorian house is lived in by a very enthusiastic, active, and outdoorsy family. There are plenty of golf umbrellas, there's a kite to fly, there's a walking stick. So they like being out and about and doing things. It's not surprising then to find all these baseball caps, but the rest of the hats here clearly reflect a globe-trotting lifestyle. There are hats from Kazakhstan, Vietnam, Texas, Russia, Australia, and a good old local English motorbike helmet. One of the walls in the dining room is decorated with some stylish black and white illustrations from the plays of Shakespeare. So maybe someone in the family is a bit of a performer or keen on amateur theatrics. Now note the middle row of pictures. Either they've been very artistically set askew, or they have pretty wild dinner parties round here. Now, family is obviously very important in this household. There are nice framed snapshots of various sprogs, and they're sitting on top of a very impressive looking piano, which is more than just a stand for picture frames, because these people actually sit around the piano and have family sing-songs. They've got the song books to prove it. Books like 125 Great Songs of the 70s and 60s, and a book by America's once leading choir master, Fred Waring. So someone in this household probably comes from the States. This is a fine photograph of a solar eclipse, in this case as observed from Baja, California. Now, the fact that someone here would travel all the way there to photograph an eclipse, coupled with the stars on the walls and a nice photograph of the surface of the moon, would show that someone in this family is indeed keenly interested in science, astronomy, space physics, that sort of thing. This conservatory has been turned into what's really the living room of the household. It's got this very comfortable, rather curvy sectional sofa. Now, these folks love their gardening, but they've got a sense of humor about it. You can see that they call their garden the Garden of Whedon. In spite of that, though, they've got all the serious gardening books, and it really is a pastime that they enjoy. You can also tell that someone here is quite artistic. I like the arrangement of sunflowers a la Van Gogh. Reading is very important around here. This family keep up with all the latest novels. They've also got quite a lot of practical books, guidebooks, for example, and a huge run of back copies of the National Geographic. So globetrotting is part of everyday life here. You can also see more signs of that interest in science. They like technology, they're reading about Concord, and of course they've read A Brief History of Time. Let's look at the evidence. A world full of hats. A talent for performing. A bit of stargazing. Who lives in a house like this? David, it's over to you.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. And now for our home and studio audience, here's whose house it is.
Well, blimey, Mark, look who it is. It's our good friend. It's our good friend and personal friend and colleague.
Yeah.
Howard Stableford.
I don't think we can push colleague on him. I don't think we can drag him down with us, Russ.
Best bud. Partner in crime.
You mean partner?
Yeah, partner in crime. Yeah. Howard Stableford. Blimey. Very different house to Raymond's, I would say.
Yes.
Some stronger design choices, especially in terms of paint colours and some of the way things are hung on the wall.
We'll get there. Before we get into Howard's house, I think Lloyd pulls the same trick when describing the house this time round as he did first. So he previously described Raymond's house as a cottage, when it most certainly is not. And he described Howard's as an early Victorian house, which kind of implies a kind of a Victorian terrace. When you see that back garden, our Howard was in a goddamn mansion house. It was fabulously large. It was stunning. It's like, and he just kind of dismisses it as, it's an early Victorian house. Yeah. It's Victoria's earliest house, apparently. So I don't know what Lloyd's... You just thought Lloyd would have understood the vernacular of architecture by the time he got to 1999, but there you go.
Oh yeah, I wonder what the worst house he looked round was. I wonder who celebrity had like the most piss poor house that actually got on the show.
You're really talking us into doing a Through the Keyhole all the time, aren't you? So we could discover this for ourselves.
I think I'd be infuriated by the poor... I do find the poor clues slightly infuriating.
Actually, yeah. I expected to really hate the panel, and I've just so much sympathy for them now. They are sold down the river by Grossman. Yeah. Because again, now that we've been doing this for a while, and Howard knows we love him, and everyone knows we love Howard, his house makes a lot of sense to Howard academics like yourself and I.
Yeah.
The colours, absolutely. We've seen his suit jackets. That makes perfect sense. I like that. I like actually his interior life is the same as his exterior life. That's brilliant to me.
And the fact that it's strongly insinuated that he's married to an American.
Yes, which we know.
We know that.
We know that. And Howard knows that. And she knows that.
Who else could possibly know that Howard is married to an American? Yeah.
Because we learned she's an accountant, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think yes, we said yeah. So which I don't think we didn't know before.
Celebrity accountant?
Yeah, must be. Yeah. Well, maybe
in accountancy.
Well, we're not going to get to it yet, is it? But maybe she was an accountant for Howard's dodgy Russian operations.
Business. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. More of which we would love to hear.
Yes.
Anyway.
Once again, there's like a concentration on the music in this with the 125 great songs of the 70s and 60s, and some book by Fred Waring, who I'd never heard of, but
A book by America's once leading choir master, which I love the addition of the word once leading.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, sorry, of course, Lloyd, because we know all the others who've taken over from him. Again, it's like I like that. I mean, what Graceman does that is good is he does. I think he does create an idea of you can imagine the parties in the house. You can imagine the celebrations. You can imagine the family getting around the piano and singing. That does not help us guess Howard Stableford.
Knowing that it's Howard Stableford, it is good that we do have a dad joke kind of thing, even in that they've got that little sign.
Yes.
Calling their
Garden of Whedon.
Garden of Whedon.
Yep.
And that's not Joss Whedon. That's Whedon as in...
No.
Yeah.
W-E-E-D.
Yes, yeah.
E-N. I have to say, it took me about 10 seconds to get it, because initially I assumed it was a wee den joke, and I thought that seems a bit crass. Or I don't know.
I think Whedon apostrophe,
Whedon.
so like weeding shortened might be better. But, you know, who am I to criticise?
Might be a bit too late to pass notes.
I wonder where you'd buy something like that from. Garden Centre, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, that's the other thing. Like,
commissioned.
He's got a love of gardening. I don't
doubt that's not true. I don't doubt it's true, rather.
But very little gardening content on Tomorrow's World, or I don't think I've ever seen Howard doing anything to do with gardening, really.
I feel like adding that to our tropes list. Howard talks about gardening. I feel like it'll be never ticked. And again, this is not a criticism of Howard's house. This is a criticism of the Through the Keyhole show failing to do the one thing it promises you, which is provide clues for you to guess whose house it is.
One thing they do have, though, is that he's definitely read A Brief History of Time.
Yes.
And as we obviously have seen, that he was the person to interview Stephen Hawking on Tomorrow's World. And
as he told us, like that was an important thing as well. Like he's, absolutely meant something.
From that single clue of that book, famously, was it the second highest selling book in British history or something? Whatever that fact was that I brought out when he was
something mad, 25 million editions sold or something. Yeah.
We are supposed to intuit that it's Howard Stableford in this house. Yeah,
we could.
Yes, yeah. The elephant in the room, though, Mark, which we've not mentioned yet.
Yes.
Those pictures artistically set askew in his dining room.
That is a hard no from hard no.
I'm trying to think of any setting where it might... I was thinking it might work if you were displaying headshots in a comedy, on the walls of a comedy club. Maybe... It's the only situation I can think of where I would find that an acceptable way of displaying pictures.
It's not acceptable, Russ. it's not acceptable. Now, I do like the story behind why it's the way it is, or they're the way they are.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. No, hard no. No, unacceptable to me. All my pictures are beautifully aligned and on askew.
And I presume, like me, it drives you mad when you go around somebody else's house and they don't seem to be that bothered by it.
I will 100% reset them, as I'm sure you do.
Yeah, obviously.
I will not make a fuss about it. I will just expect them to wonder what hero came and rid them of the torment that must have been rattling around their brain grapes.
Yeah, whose house?
I do like the fact that everyone does glom onto the pictures, but they all seem to think it's a great idea. So I don't know. They're all everyone at this time is obsessed with changing rooms on BBC One, right?
Yeah, actually, some of those colours are a bit changing rooms. I think some of these paint colour choices. You've seen both houses, Mark. Whose house would you prefer to live in?
Oh, Howard's. I actually thought it was a nicer house. I liked Raymond's. I like the idea of living by the river.
Yeah.
We don't know that Howard doesn't live by the river. We don't see beyond the expanse of his property to see what he does or doesn't look over. It was that shot in the back garden. It just looked really lovely, and I could imagine having a barbecue out there. Obviously Howard's moved out. Oh no, hang on. Do I have to live in it as it is?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got those pictures.
Yeah.
You've got all those hats available to you.
That's the thing. I was about to say I have to suffer the pictures, but I have all those hats available to me.
Yeah. Famous hat wearer Howard Stableford.
But again, I like it, but it's the same as we didn't mention the dolls in Raymond's house. It's clearly the souvenirs they would bring back for their travels. And I was like, again, I like little details like that. That's when when you go to a friend's house and you see these little details, it always kind of creeps me out when you go to somebody's house and it's
a beige palace, absolutely sterile,
completely devoid of personality.
Yeah.
no kind of sense of who the people are. It's like, I find that creepy. It's like, actually, that again, I like the fact that Howard's looks like it is loved and lived in by a family, and that had just a wonderful little touch. Again, like Raymond has all these little dolls, which remarkably, as you rightly pointed out, remarkably seem to be quietly unproblematic.
yeah. If somebody of that age has spent his life collecting dolls from around the world, you'd expect at least one or two to not pass the
sniff test.
The sniff test.
Yeah,
but he seems to. He
remarkably
seems to be fine.
He's done a stand-up job there.
But I do.
I like that.
I do find dolls, frankly, horrible though. So I think
100%.
if I had to choose between the two collections, I think the hat collection wins out.
Hats are fun.
I mean, you can, hats
are fun.
You know, going around the house wearing that Russian general.
But that's exactly what I was thinking. That's the only one I'd be wearing. Papers, please.
Yeah. But I do suspect that a lot of the interior design choices there.
Yes, he does. He says that it's his wife.
Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. Which again, it's like maybe if you were asked to guess. If she was the personality, you go like, oh, it's got her written all over. But of course, she's not famous. It is his house. It's like, it's weird. The more we rewatch this show, the more you go like, it doesn't really make sense, does it? I do wonder how much of it was staged, not in the sense that it's artificial, but the more in the sense that, you know, the show would have said like, actually, it'd be really handy if we put these here. And
that's got to be the case, isn't it? They've got to be artfully arranged things for the camera, I think. But equally, that would be great if they just went in someone's house and it was an absolute bomb site.
What was that guy's name? Was it Fred Trebus or something like that?
Mr. Trebus.
Mr. Trebus, yeah. I do you know, if that was on Through the Keyhole, I would have guessed that was his house.
You got Lloyd Grossman like crawling through tiny crevices between stacks of newspapers and
like Eugene Victor
bottles of piss. Yeah.
Potential fire hazard. No, it was a nice house. They're both lovely houses. Why? Which one would you pick?
Well, from what we saw, I think Howard's is the decor is more interesting in Howard's.
Yeah.
I, however, reckon there was probably more to Raymond's house that we didn't even see.
Yeah, that's true. I suspect it's more of an iceberg, isn't it? Like we saw merely the tip, and the rest of it is. Well, I mean, we know he must have a wine cellar.
Exactly, extensive wine cellar.
At what, 16 degrees?
yeah, and possibly somewhere to park his boat on the river.
Hence the river, right? The river, easy river access. Yeah, I get that. It depends on where Howard is. I mean, I quite like living in London, so. I'd probably pick based on location.
Well, I think wasn't Raymond's West London, wasn't it? I think
it was. Yeah, no, I mean it was on the Thames. It was like, that'll do. You know, but you know, I'd rather live more central.
Well, let's quickly look at what the panel do. Yeah.
Debbie, it's over to you.
Oh, it's over to me. Oh dear. Well, are we talking about a man? I'm going to take my lessons from man about a man. So we have an American man, possibly, so it's an American wife.
I think the wife of the household is American.
The wife is American. And he is the explorer. He is the traveller. She's the traveller.
No, he's the traveller.
Would this non-American man?
He's English, obviously.
Be well known for being on television to do with travelling. And not on television for stargazing. That could possibly be a hobby, you know, the heavens and heavenly
But I think that the applause there was slightly misleading in the sense that most of the travelling is done to get to places rather than, you know,
it's
wish
because
you were
of what
here.
he does
It's
when
not
he gets
wish,
there.
Not wish you were here sort of thing. Anyway.
Right, so he goes to these places to work. Right.
All right then, Annabelle.
Clear as mud, isn't it? Yes. Oh look! Don't you want to straighten those pictures? Oh
no, I like that. I like
go
them
along.
like that.
Oh, it drive me insane. That was. Is he a performer?
Yes.
Yes.
A performer?
Obviously, they don't think so.
He performs on television.
Is he a correspondent of some sort?
Sort of, yes.
A sort of correspondent.
Would he be on a television programme that is well known for? It's an educational programme. Would this man who travels wherever he travels to do his job, would he have been around for quite some time? And I'm not being rude about his age. I mean, would he have been on television for a while?
No, he's I think he's under 40.
He's under 40?
Just under 40.
Well, he's got a young family, because I saw the playthings in the
He
background.
could have started late.
Oh, was
Somebody there knows when he
40.
started.
Well, that's-
Under 40 with young children, that could be
That's James Burke out the
anybody at
window.
all. And he is a presenter on TV.
Is it young Jeremy Clarkson?
It could be, but it isn't.
Oh, but it's someone
Because
like
he's always
that.
filling his
Yes,
expenses.
it's a good...
It's a good guess.
Someone like
Jeremy
that.
Paxton? No.
It's that kind of thing, though, isn't it, David?
Yes, you're
So look, so we've got
getting the age
Shakespeare.
about right.
Is Shakespeare relevant? No.
Not really.
No, it's nonsense.
Not
It's just
really.
to annoy me having the pictures
Really.
there. Piano, eclipse, stars, moon.
Moon stars.
Well,
Just been given.
I don't think you're going to get this because of the subtlety with which he has been chosen here, because it is the person who was, from 1985 until 1997, presenter of Tomorrow's World, Howard Stapleford. Will you come through the keyhole?
Well, what a failure, Mark. What a failure. Do you think it is upsetting as a guest celebrity, as a homeowner on Through the Keyhole, if the panel do not get who it is? Because then that suggests that you are not of sufficient fame to be guessable.
I suspect, though I will say in Harry's defence, I think the fact that it was two Tomorrow's World presenters on the one show meant that they were unlikely to guess it was him.
Yes.
I think, you know, they mentioned Jeremy Paxman, don't they? Like I think they subconsciously they're ruling out Tomorrow's World.
Well,
which meant that Howard was, you know, starting. He was cut off beneath the knees, Russ. He was never going to be able to guess. Yeah, I don't know because Sir David goes, "Oh, well, you've stumped them."
with your impossible to guess house. Because there wasn't a giant sign in there saying I'm a former Tomorrow's World.
Howard Stapleford, presenter of Tomorrow's World. Please knock on the door. I'm out the back.
I quite like that bit in that panel bit there. The bit that I liked best was when somebody guessed, "Is it Jeremy Clarkson?" And then David Frost goes, "It's not Jeremy Clarkson, but it's someone in that sort of similar area." And then Debbie guesses Jeremy Paxman, and I like the fact that she thought it was just somebody called Jeremy, like rather than
it's Jeremy. Yeah, is it Jeremy from Peep Show?
I thought maybe the fact that they had Howard on there at the same time as Raymond, it would somehow put them in a Tomorrow's World frame of mind, and it would actually help as a hint, but no, more of a hindrance, you reckon? They just
I think more of a hindrance, because I think you were giving I was thinking about your example that you gave earlier of Mike Reed
and Mike Reed.
Yeah, it's like that's the producers being tricksy, right? You see one Mike Reed. Let's assume you see the EastEnders Mike Reed first.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. You're never going to assume that the next person is DJ Mike Reed.
Yeah, we look in the bathroom. There's some mullet comb, and some big colourful glasses cleaner.
Yeah. I suppose actually the clues were there, weren't they?
Yeah. And over here,
that always reminds me of that amazing. Was it Fist of Fun, or was it? No, it was tomorrow. This morning, at Richard on Judy, with the people who were writing in with sitcom idea. It was Mike Reed's My Creed, in which Mike Reed and Mike Reed go around Britain on a motorcycle and sidecar, learning about the difference between people from different cultures.
Well, I presume Mike Reed of Brexit Calypso fame.
Yes.
Probably wouldn't.
He's all too familiar with different cultures.
Oh, if we look in this drawer, we can find a blue passport.
This seems to be a fan of Robinson's Jam.
Well, yeah. So, should we see what Howard's got to say for himself?
I think so, don't we? Justify yourself.
tough.
Well, it was tough.
It was tough. Very few clues.
Very few clues. And congratulations on beating the panel. We foxed them. We foxed them there.
Totally
Were there
foxed.
any clues that they missed, do you think?
Well, not really. I think because, as you can see, who sort of makes my home is my wife.
Yeah.
So there's sort of
There's not a trace of you there, is
And
there?
I was the only clue. The only clue was that I was the one that tilted the pictures. Sorry, Annabelle.
I could never have anything to do with you. It's all off.
But no, that is unique. I've never seen that before, I must say.
What happened, and Lloyd was right about this, we did have this particularly loud dinner party, and they were all straight. And one party guest said, I can't bear that anymore.
Oh.
And she was the one that got up and did that, and we liked it, and we kept it that way.
I think
Actually,
it's
wasn't
great. I love it.
Yeah, I think it's very, very creative, because first of all you think it's a mistake, and then you realise it isn't. I think it's unique. I think you should copyright it.
My wife's an accountant, which explains why they were all ordered like that in the first place.
Yes. We were asking Raymond earlier on, did you have favourite inventions that you unearthed on Tomorrow's World?
I think one of my favourite was definitely some very serious research being done by Moët & Chandon, the champagne makers, who were putting a lot of research into making the bubbles in their champagne of a uniform size.
Yes, good.
Yeah, and I think they're still working on it, because evidently you just don't want champagne with different sized bubbles.
No, very distressing.
So I went all the way to Epernay in France to do this story, and very pleased I did, really.
Yeah.
That was one of the highlights.
Yes, there were compensations there. And you had, among your programmes, you had a glove with 8 fingers, didn't you?
Yeah, that was we sort of piloted a show about inventors, garden shed inventors, and one lad in Yorkshire came along, sat in the audience, and we went into the audience to see what people had, and he'd invented a glove with 8 fingers so that lovers could hold hands in the winter.
All together, please. Yeah, it's lovely.
It is lovely.
A little magic moment of romance in the middle of the programme.
Got nowhere, of course. Nobody backed it.
No.
Down the
Down the tube.
Down the pan.
And now you're working up deals in Russia, I gather.
Yes. I set up a Russian television company to syndicate the BBC programmes around Russia. And this was a fantastic out-of-body experience in many ways, because I'd be doing Tomorrow's World, I'd fly to Moscow with my briefcase, stride across Red Square to business meetings, thinking, what the heck am I doing? I'm a Tomorrow's World presenter. And then we'd have simultaneous translation meetings with heads of televisions from the whole of Russia to try and sell BBC programmes over there, because I had contacts, that it was just the right time, the right place. But it all got a bit heavy with the mafia.
Oh, really?
Yes, and we nearly fell in with a group who I better not name, just in case they watch this in Russia, who were really not people that we should have been working with. And in the end, we folded it, because it was costing us an arm and a leg just to be there, to pay what they call the roofers. The mafia over there call themselves, you need roofing. We had a basement office. But we had to pay the roofers $2,000 US a month. And, it all just became...
Genteel form, not very genteel form of protection.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it's great fun to have you with us, Howard, I must say. And this is the Through the Keyhole Key, which is our way of saying thanks a million.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for the new decorating idea of the wonky
The nation
pictures.
will do it now.
Yeah, the nation will take their stand from that. Howard Stableford, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Howard Stableford and Raymond Baxter. What a dream team. And the dream team over there too. Annabelle, Russ and Deborah. Until the next time, goodbye for now.
Delighted that Annabelle absolutely trashes him for the picture skew-if.
Well, no, but then she turncoats when people seem to indicate, like she says, oh, yeah, no. Do you not notice that? When people seem to indicate that they like it, she kind of turns tune.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't, yeah. Well,
Her
I suppose
instinct was correct.
she doesn't want to be torn apart by an angry mob outside the Through the Keyhole studios afterwards, does she?
Well, all she'd have to do is stand up straight to avoid them.
Howard is surprisingly frank about his dealings with the Russians in this interview, isn't he? He does seem like he was genuinely shaken up. It was shaken up, but like genuinely he found himself in a bit of hot water regarding these Russian mafia,
or at least recognise in time that people were beginning to heat the water up beneath him.
Yes, you never hear people say Russian mafia much anymore. Do you? They just say oligarchs now. Or
well, it's more like the whole. It's a mafia state.
Yes, yeah.
There's no mafia anymore. There's just Russia.
Yeah, I wonder what that was like, and I wonder because obviously BBC has its own worldwide distribution sort of operation. So I wonder what the situation was with the fact that Howard could take it upon himself to sort of go there. It seemed to be seemingly going there under his own steam. Because it didn't seem like he was. I didn't get the impression he was actually working for the BBC. Was he? I seemed like he was working under his own steam, but somehow had the.
It sounded like that. It's like he had the kind of like the permission to give it a go.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? Oh, actually.
Yeah, have my fingers smashed with a hammer.
That's the worst you think could happen?
Yeah, to Howard. He'd tell him a couple of jokes and then they just let him get away with a quick hand smashing, I think.
Do a quick presentation from a gantry. Maybe wowed. Yeah.
Interestingly, he doesn't say when he's asked about his favourite inventions, wasn't he? Or,
yes.
Now, when we were on the same show as him, he suggested the same invention that I'd heard
when we worked together.
When we worked together, yeah. He suggested the same invention that I'd either read or heard him suggest in a previous interview, and that is a window blind that turns into a satellite dish.
Yes.
So I assumed that was the most impressive thing he's ever seen because he obviously mentioned it twice, but he doesn't mention that in this one. He mentions He's more about the fun at the moment, and he just mentions the fact that he got to go to the Moet and Shandon factory and to investigate bubbles that are all the same size and presumably got drunk.
Yeah,
But then
hardly blame him.
But then he mentions this other show about so-called garden shed inventors.
Here's where my ears pricked up. Right?
Yeah.
Did yours do the same?
Yeah. Do you think that's what the garden references were in the?
No, I think it's
piece?
coincidence.
Oh.
But this sounds like something we need to know more about.
Yeah.
Stat.
But I don't know whether when he says did they make an unbroadcast pilot? In which case I doubt we'll ever find.
I have zero recollection of this. Yeah.
No. But if it ever was broadcast, if they made that would be an absolute treat to find, wouldn't it?
Because he talks about one of the inventions being an 8-fingered glove to allow lovers to hold hands in the cold.
Yeah.
Which reminded me of, what's that Japanese term for kind of ridiculous inventions, kind of pointless inventions?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? That was part of a show.
Like that switch that when you turn the switch, it reaches out and turns itself back off again. That
kind of thing, yeah. Like pointless inventions. I would love to know more about that show, because you can see how that's a logical kind of light entertainment spin-off from a popular presenter in Tomorrow's World, from the sublime to the ridiculous kind of thing. Fascinating. I'd love to know more, because there must have been, talking to personalities, there must have been some real personalities on that show.
Yeah.
But I suspect just the way he described it, it sounded like it was an unbroadcast pilot.
Do you think it was called Howard's Stable? Stable's kind of like a shed, isn't it?
I mean, you want me to answer that?
Does sound like he might have been stealing Bob Symes's lunch a bit, though.
That's true.
Absolutely right for Bob Symes' treatment of the Garden Shed Inventor Program.
Oh, do you know what? I'm furious now. I'm retroactively furious.
I wonder how many times over these 50 episodes of the podcast you've been furious at something.
As many times as it takes to entertain you, Russ. I mean, you do always get excited when clearly I'm doing my notes, and as I go on, I'm writing more and more, and it's more and more venomous. You've texted me on a few occasions saying, "Oh, I was really, really pleased to see how angry you got."
Yes. Well, I mean I
gave you 14 and a half minutes, Russ, so I think we can stop now, right?
Yeah.
I want this to be the shortest episode ever, so come on. Snap.
Are we going to give it a tiny little wee mini audit?
Oh, go on then. I did there was 6 questions, some of them which are based on Hale and Pace at H&P at BBC.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's any more questions that you can think of, but there was the highlight of the show. What was the highlight of the show?
Highlight of the show was hearing David Frost saying, "The clues are there."
Yeah, for me, the highlight of the show was being reminded what a pro David Frost was, and that line delivery right at the beginning, especially because it won't come across in the podcast, but he stares at the panel like he's telling them the clue. I had to do Lloyd Grossman there. The clues are there. I really enjoyed that very much. That to me was the highlight. Low light, Russ. Low light of the show.
Low light, I would say, just the panel being rubbish generally, or that clue about Raymond's glockenspiel.
Oh, and the spinnet. Do you know, I was fully anticipating, because when you discussed this, what, like 6 weeks ago, and I was thinking, I was kind of partly dreading it, thinking like, I'm gonna absolutely hate the panel stuff. The panel, I was fully expecting to go in studded tackle, right, and like rake down the back of their shins. And actually, I've got a huge amount of sympathy for them. I think they're given a hospital pass and they do all that they can with it. So I don't want to watch it ever again, but I felt sympathy for them rather than annoyance. So actually, for me, the low light of the show, I was going to joke and say it was the askew pictures, but actually, there are no clues. That's it.
Yeah,
there are no clues in either segment. There's really no clues as to who it is. So that's kind of frustrating, isn't it? It's like it's fun to nose around a celebrity's house, but if you're going to predicate it on a quiz show, then you need to be able to play along at home.
It needs to be doable.
Can't.
Yeah,
it needs to be doable. Yeah, any crossword needs to be solvable. There has to be an internal logic, and I suppose that was a bit annoying for me. I felt like Lloyd betrayed them. Speaking of clues, what's the best clue, Russ? What was the one that you thought, oh, brilliant, absolutely?
Maybe that big painting of a Spitfire above Ray's bed.
Yeah. For me, it was the fact that every second clue in Raymond's house was a boat.
Yeah. Or maybe it was David just telling the panel that it was something to do with tomorrow and the future.
Yeah. That was fun. And the worst clue, then, I suspect we'd probably agree, is the glockenspiel, spinnet, organ, and probably even Howard's piano, just because they're not clues. I mean, they're clues of a musical home and a home full of love and song, but that doesn't really help us work out who they are.
No.
Best interior design choice, Russ?
Oh, I don't know. Was there anything that you did?
So it sounds like we're denigrating the houses. Not at all. Just like, I suppose there was nothing I saw like, oh, what a great idea. I'd love that in my house.
The lamp made out of a bottle of Magnum of Burgundy.
I didn't think that was nearly as impressive as Lloyd made out. Lloyd made that sound like it was one of the most innovative things he's ever seen. We currently, in our house, we have a lamp that is in a large kind of Magnum of sake, which I think is a much more interesting choice than Burgundy. So I can't claim that one. I don't know. There was nothing really. Maybe it would be the hats on the wall, but the hats because they were where you'd been.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that idea of having a moment that is a biography of the residents. I think that's a nice thing. It doesn't have to dominate the house, but it's just a little moment that's kind of a vertical slice of somebody's journey. That's pretty good. Worst interior design choice, Russ?
Well, it's the Wonky Pictures, isn't it?
I'm sorry, Harris. The Wonky Pictures, Howard.
Yeah.
It's just no. It's a big no from me.
Well. Any more to say about that thrilling episode of Through the Keyhole?
I suppose I'd say, Russ, there were circa 450 episodes ever broadcast. Yeah. And we have now watched and audited one of them, which means that we only have a scant 449 circa to go.
I mean, maybe we'll cover one every 50 episodes. Well, I suppose it depends, obviously, if Lloyd Grossman brings any more around my house.
That's true. Was that definitely him?
Oh, no, wasn't it? Actually, no. What did I say? I know he sent a courier, didn't he? Actually, he was wearing.
No. Here's the thing. No, it was confusing because you said a courier was at the door, but as you went downstairs, you were doing a kind of a Lloyd Grossman sound, like he was at the door. So when you came back and said, "Oh, it was a DPD or something like that," I was a bit like, "Oh, that doesn't track." He's wearing
a crash helmet, so I couldn't really tell. That's why it was muffled.
Oh, there we go. Oh, maybe it was him. Reeked of bolognese, right?
Yeah. Well, Mark.
Yes.
We were through in record time until Lloyd Grossman turned up, in which case now we're probably actually just recording
over 4 hours.
Just recording for 4 hours. Oh well. Well, it is a spectacular.
I tried, Russ. I tried to rush us along. It is a spectacular.
It is a spectacular.
Hooray!
Normal service will resume next episode. Anyway, I've got to go. I've decided I've got my spirit level, and I'm going to get the next plane back to the UK and seek Howard's house out. I presume.
I thought you were going to say Colorado Springs, here I come.
Oh no! Do you think they've carried over that decor thing to Colorado? Maybe every house they live in has it. Anyway,
oh, that would be fun. Now, there I would disagree with what we said earlier. If it's a consistent trait in all their homes, I can get behind that. No, I can't.
Whatever the case,
no.
I'm gonna go from house to house, trying to find these things and set them straight.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Set them straight.
Yeah. But until next time.
Oh, happy anniversary, Russ. Happy 50th.
Yeah, thank you. If you are in the internet, we will see you tomorrow. And David, it's over to you.
Bye.